A lot of Aggie fans here.
You know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Thank you, Schloss. Thank you, Braden. Hayden Schott, Jackson Appel, Jace, everybody. Chris Cortez, Shane Sadea. Thank you, guys, because I don't know where the season's going to end up for Aggie baseball. I don't know if that means a national championship, a super regional, whatever. Maybe what. But right now, when I need a little bit of excitement and something to be super proud of, we've got a couple of programs, and I'm going to start it off with baseball after their big win yesterday, that just are making things fun again. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I'm David Nuño. He's Olin Buchanan. OB, I know you were keeping up with the game through the thread, and, man, it's the fun to know we're the better team.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know, like going into every series, like, while many of us have sometimes a little BAS, right? Like, we can find ways to lose in our minds before a game even starts, right? And I still suffer from that, from all of my sports. Houston teams, Real Madrid, Texas A&M. I go through that. But with this team this year so far, it just feels like it doesn't matter the scenario. I feel very comfortable because of what we've seen in a small sample set. Really great pitching and really great offense.
You know, and here's the deal. A&M scored 9 runs last night at Texas, which is not a great hitter's park. At least that's the way I remember it when I was over there. 9 runs, and I don't think, from following the thread, that they had a particularly good offensive night. And let me explain. I think they were struck out 12 times.
Yeah.
You know? So, sometimes left some guys on. And that's going to happen. But you struck out 12 times in a non-hitter's park and scored 9 runs.
Yep.
I think that's just another example of how just incredibly powerful and productive. And with your one of your leading hitters getting beamed in the first inning.
Yeah. And I was worried he wasn't going to come back in.
Yeah, what a tough guy that guy.
Yeah. And by the way, this is with Braden Montgomery just freaking like first at bat, first home run of the game. Let's go. Like, that's what he's done. Was it 3 out of 4 games, I think it is? He's just been, look at that, 2 for 4 yesterday, a home run, 2 RBI. And by the way,
I saw the video of that home run too. Well, it got out in a hurry, didn't it?
It did get out in a hurry. Welcome to Texas A&M. You've been here for a while, but welcome, buddy. That's, you know, one of the things that I love. OB, I really love this.
Yeah, what is it? What do you love?
I love the transfers.
Yeah.
Or the storyline from yesterday. Like, look, Chris Cortez pitched well enough. Shane Sadeo was a stud.
So was Eschenbach.
Evan Eschenbach was fantastic, right? Like, he was great. Josh Stewart came in a great time. But Hayden Schott, freaking Braden Montgomery.
2-run single, right?
Yeah, Jackson Appel. These are transfer guys delivering in a huge – look, I told you, if we lost, not that big of a deal. If we win, huge deal. I like winning, so they all matter to me. You got to win tonight. Like, keep winning. I love it.
Yeah, I like their chances tonight against Texas Southern. I do. Eric Saris and I were talking about that. We were breaking that one down earlier.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was so much fun. I wish I could have watched the game. I don't have the TV package where I was able to. The wife and I was telling you, we took a walk, and there's somebody in my neighborhood who has an enormous TV that in an enormous living room. And I know this because his blinds were open and we were
Yeah.
kind of like peeping Toms looking in the window, but we were watching.
Like in old days.
Yeah, except this time we were just watching. Oh, they threw out a guy at first base. Good, let's move on.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if he's naked. You're watching the game.
That's right.
Yeah. It's fun. What I'm enjoying about it. Oh, by the way, you're lucky you didn't watch the Longhorn Network. Look, I know that our friend Will Johnson told me there's the site. I don't have it in front of me. That I didn't have time to do it yesterday. My son's had a soccer game, so I was initially watching the thread through their game. Then I rushed home to catch it, and I do have the LHN. I won't even say the name.
Do you know who the play-by-play guy was?
I think Greg Swindell was one of them.
Okay, well,
he was the color guy, right?
Okay.
And he's actually good.
Yeah.
I didn't actually have a problem with the broadcast team. And I don't have a problem with anything. I just don't like watching Texas propaganda. Every commercial about the broadcast school but like it's their channel.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, like they wouldn't like watching TexAgs. I get it, but it makes me appreciate the SEC network, which I know sometimes people think it's anti-A&M. I don't think so. I think you have a bunch of different personalities that have some school spirit for their school, sure, but I think they tell a pretty good story. And I really appreciate the SEC network and what next year is going to mean.
Well, yeah, like you said, I didn't see it, so I'm probably talking out of school here, but it doesn't bother me, the quote propaganda and things like that, because I know it's
part of the game.
Their network. What bothered me is like what I told you about yesterday is when you're just taking a very unprofessional approach. So my question would be, understanding that they're going to be pro-Texas, overall, was the broadcast team, did they approach calling the game in a professional manner?
Nick, were you watching the game? By the way, welcome into the show. Is Nick back there? I don't even know if Nick's
I'm back here.
Okay, good.
Sorry,
I should know who's back there today. Nick, did you watch the game?
I bits and pieces. I was calling a softball game, so I got to see the first inning and I got to see the last 2 innings. So, I mean,
that was a long game, by the way.
So you saw 2 home runs?
I did. No, I didn't see Appel's home run. I was actually walking in my car.
You saw the 2-run single?
No, I saw the 2-run home run from Montgomery, and then I saw Sadeo kind of slam the door on him. But I was listening to Monaco.
Sadeo said no.
Sadeo, no. You got to say with an accent.
6 batters faced, 6 strikeouts. Well, he faced more than 6, but 6 outs recorded with strikeout.
I don't pay attention to the broadcast team that often unless it's like our guys, right? So sometimes when people tell me Tom Hart said this, I hear it, but I don't hear it. I don't analyze. So I don't remember much anti-A&M.
See, that's all I need to hear. If you don't remember it,
right,
then it was probably done well.
I will say this. At the end of the game, when I was listening to it, there wasn't much to say on their end. It was 9-2, and they were kind of like, hey, let's wrap this thing up.
9-2, and they were lucky to get one of those. It was should have been a double play ball, as I understand, as Richard Zane was describing it on the thread. But hey, nobody's perfect. I can accept a 9-2 victory.
I didn't have a problem with the broadcast team. Okay. But again, I don't like every commercial because let me tell you the truth. My children are watching this game with me. I don't want Texas propaganda on my television, right? I know my wife went there. It doesn't matter. My family's a bunch of Aggies. Even my wife is an Aggie, even though she went to Texas.
Whoop.
Right? Like, just like I don't want to watch, a Putin station. I don't. Sorry.
Well, wouldn't the Longhorn Network be that?
Yeah. If it was the only way to watch, I guess. No, they were fine. I didn't have a problem with it. But
you know who I like?
Who do you like?
We talked about this. I like Craig Way. He's a friend of mine. He's great. And he's really good at his job. And I would have liked to have been able to hear him call the game because I know he's going to do it professionally, but he also has to, he has a target audience.
Yeah.
And
we do too.
Right.
Yeah.
So to hear, I would have liked to have heard Craig, the way he'd have to call those home runs and the big hits and the big clutch outs. And I would have liked to hear how he would have described it to kind of let his constituents, down easy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to Schloss yesterday talk about it because at least from my perspective, it sounded like a pretty good A&M crowd. It looked like a pretty good A&M crowd. And I know after the 7th inning, it certainly was a pro A&M crowd. Here's Schloss yesterday on the environment.
A lot of Aggie fans here, and thought the environment was great. Obviously, Montgomery's homer and Chris pitching out of a few things, kind of kept the sound down a little bit. I thought I think we're showing we can win games in a variety of ways, right? And we obviously would love to score more, and we all want to see the ball going out of the ballpark. But Appel had some great big at bats. Obviously, the home run was big. But I just felt, and Aschenbeck, you could tell he was, 3 days rest off 55 pitches was a lot to ask to send him back out there in the bottom of the seventh. We were trying to squeeze, one more inning out of him. Stewie getting that big strikeout on a field that, he pitched on. That was big. That mound's tough to throw on. That's a big mound. I mean, you guys can see it from here. When I went out there to change pitchers, I was like, holy cow, it's going to take a while to get adjusted to this. So I thought all those pitchers did a nice job.
That's my coach. Love that dude.
He is an impressive coach, isn't he?
Yeah.
And hey, how about, you talked about the transfers, right? How about the job he has done and his staff of assembling this team and, making obviously the right calls?
Yep.
There's some coaches here in other sports who brought in transfers and haven't had
the success.
Haven't had an impact.
Yep.
This guy, man, seems like every.
I'm hoping, and I feel like, honestly, I remember where I was when I was not part of the show when they were going through the coaching search. Right. Mm-hmm. I was watching TexAgs. I knew I was going to take over the gig in July. I forget when it was, May, June-ish time. Right. And I'm watching the show, and I remember the optimism that Bronny, Lucci, and Gabe talked about when it came to Schloss. And then, hearing the way he attacked, when I was here, attacked the portal and brought these guys, and how disciplined and detail-oriented he is, and how good of a guy he is, and his track record. And it makes me think, oh, that sounds like the offseason we're having right now with football.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to equate the same kind of success, but it feels that way.
I do hope that Elko proves to be as astute and successful with his
transfer eye.
Yes, I was where I was going. His evaluation and accumulation, rhyme there, of transfers as Schlossnagle has been.
And by the way,
and we also hope Max Weiner, the job that he's done, the offensive line coach can do a similar.
If Max Weiner could have the effect on the offensive line coach, right? That would be great with Mr. Cushing, Adam Cushing. But hey, this is fun, right?
Yeah.
And I do want to say for Buzz did a really good job up, and I wouldn't say he's done a bad job this year with the transfers. I just know that year one, success.
Yeah.
Year two, success. This year, I think Jace Carter's been nice. Eli Lawrence hasn't turned out to be the player we wanted him to be, but
maybe he'll come on strong late. He hit a 3 the other night.
Yeah.
By the way, big night for A&M basketball last night.
Yeah, and it didn't register Florida. When you first told me that, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Florida beating Alabama makes that A&M's win over Florida a quad 1 win. So now they have 6. A&M still
got to win though.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if A&M was able to close with wins over Mississippi State tonight, tough game tonight, and then Ole Miss on the road, and then get you at least 1 win in Nashville with those quad 6 wins up there, they might just sneak into the tournament. And as Buzz pointed out yesterday, Arkansas was 8-10 in the SEC last year and got in the tournament, went to the Sweet 16.
Let's start that propaganda out there. Let's start reminding folks. That's true. That's a very good point right there. If you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us. How'd you feel about that game yesterday? What'd you think about the performance? 979-693-1150. You can also text us at 979-693-1150. We checked in with Nick, but he didn't really get to give us what he's thinking about this morning. Nick, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, well, we were talking about the game yesterday. I said I was cautiously optimistic. I thought it was going to be an offensive game, but it was offensive for one side, that's for sure. That's good to see. But just one little note for you, then I'll let y'all check in with Eric. Aggies have now claimed 5 of the last 6 meetings against the Longhorns, including 3 straight in Austin. The victory also moved the Aggies to 12-0 for the first time since 2015. In the 8th time in program history. So the boys are rolling, that's for sure.
I don't typically go cray-cray you're from the community. You get it, right? Cray-cray?
I know what that means. I don't think I've ever actually said it.
You should probably use it on the show today at some point. I don't usually go cray-cray for like a midweek game or like baseball this early. I was yelling yesterday, like with like hits, homers, like my kids were like, "Dad, you're really into this game." I was like, "Yeah, it does matter.
It does.
It does matter. Yeah.
It doesn't, but it does, right?
But it does.
It does.
It right now it does.
Sure. I mean, like we were talking about yesterday. Anytime you play Texas, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center to check in with Eric Casares. Eric, before you actually give us something.
Eric Cray-Cray-Saurus.
That's a new one.
Yeah, no one's ever called him Cray-Cray.
He just said for me to say it sometime, and
but I want you to like
thought I would take
I want you to use it again, but like when it's like not forced. Like I want it to be authentic.
I think it's always going to be forced. But go ahead, Eric.
Well, actually, Eric, hold on. Saturday, 1-3, Angry Elephant, Magnolia. Who's going to hang out with us? This is a true story. I had a couple people in Dallas tell me, I'm kind of making this up, but it was kind of mentioned, but I'm going to make it worse than it really was. They said, there's no way Houston's going to represent TexAgs the way Dallas did. One guy did say that. I'm going to make it like a fake thread on the boards, but one guy did say, like, Houston ain't going to show up, so Houstonians, are you going to let DFW beat you? Because they showed up in droves there at the Angry Elephant. All right, Eric, what's up?
What's up? Yeah, obviously big W for Aggie baseball last night. It's awesome to watch, and 3 straight in Austin. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Like, you think like other sports, like that doesn't happen often. So baseball really represented well. Glad to see that. They got to turn around and take on Texas Southern tonight. So got to take care of business. But OB, I had a text message. Matt in San Antonio was saying to answer OB's question, the announcers were actually decent. I remember them saying that the Aggies had a very difficult schedule with all the top 10 teams we play and how the SEC was much more difficult than their current schedule. After years of belittling the SEC, it's good to see some acknowledging how deep the league actually is.
Well, they're joining it, so it makes them feel better.
Yeah. Yes, and there's a couple other text messages.
By the way, hold that thought for a second. Football, just get ready. I'm just saying, like, maybe it's not next year with that little bit of a easier SEC-ish schedule, easier.
Yeah, because they get Vandy.
But just get ready. Like, you get Georgia at home. Georgia's always tough, but you get them at home. You get a Michigan after. That's not an SEC schedule after. But regardless, just get ready because this is every year in SEC sports. Not just baseball, not just football. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's 9 games are going to be the atmosphere of Texas, Oklahoma.
Right.
They're going to get 9 of those. So that's going to be a what's the word I'm looking for? Reality check.
Yeah. Wake up call. Cray. Sorry, that didn't fit.
Well, real quick, I was just saying, like, there's a lot of text messages flooding right now, but basically to just give y'all the consensus of everything is people were saying that last night's the commentary in the game, most of it we're talking like it was an Aggie home baseball game. So a lot of people saying that they were mentioning some like games from like 1989 when we beat them in a double hitter off of walk-off. Like they were mentioning that like at one point they were saying like they were talking about a game that we beat them like 3 years ago. So like home game.
Give them credit for being professional in the way they present. Okay.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well done, Longhorn
Swindell
Network.
and whoever else.
Swindell and the other guy. I think the other guy's a name guy. I just can't remember at the moment.
Well done, Swindell and the other guy.
Swindell's actually a really good analyst.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get to meet a lot of those guys when I was working over there.
Sure.
He's good.
Yeah. What else, Eric?
Real quick, tonight, senior night, quad 2 opportunity for Aggie basketball, taking on Mississippi State, 8 p.m., Reed Arena, Pack Reed. Bulldogs played spoiler earlier in SEC play against the Ags, winning 69-62 in Starkville. Aggies are 3-2 versus Mississippi State in the Buzz Williams era, 2-1 at Reed Arena. All-time series tied at 9-9, but Aggies do have an 8-7 record since joining the SEC. The guys that will be represented tonight in senior night will be Boots, Eli, Wildens, and manager Jelani Sprain. So come out and get them recognized.
If you wanted to come, if you ever needed a reason to come out to see Boots off, to say, hey, thanks for the job you've done.
Somebody, you know what? I hope they give him a pair of boots.
They should.
Tonight.
Some of those boots like they gave Jimbo Fisher when he
okay, maybe not those. Maybe like Billy Lucci, like Lucchesi's.
Boots may never wear them, but it'd be nice to have it.
All right. By the way, who got hit by the foul ball yesterday? Are they okay?
Yeah,
Jarrett. It was the team manager.
Yeah.
The last name, I think it's Barons, just like the guy on Twitter who tweets a lot about A&M. I don't know if they're related or not, but he posted a picture, I think with the horns down, but his nose.
But his nose broken.
Yeah,
like
and then Schloss did.
Kid.
Yeah, Schloss did acknowledge that he, he'd broken his nose. So
Yeah.
Poor guy. I know a lot of people were, because I didn't see it like quickly, and my DVR wasn't working. I couldn't rewind it, but apparently you could see his bloody face when it first happened.
That's what Richard said on the thread. Yeah.
Yeah, so prayers to him. Right now, let's talk about Chance McClain and Heritage Films. YourHeritageFilm.com is the website, YourHeritageFilm.com. They make documentary films about your family. They make documentary films about your family business, your family ranch. You know the drill, right? I've been talking about them for a few years. You need to call them up because how cool would it be to, like, have a Heritage Film set up for some big Aggie event that you have. Maybe it's one of your tailgates during football season with the Fighting Elkos this year. Maybe it's, the path to Omaha for A&M baseball. You got a little get-together. You have all your Aggie friends. That'd be a cool little video and talk about how long you've been an Aggie and how maybe you were born into it and it's just a way of life, or maybe you just want to talk about your family business or your grandfather or your dad or how the family got started. That's what Heritage Films does. They do a 2-hour documentary film for your family. It is awesome. Also, there's the Yearflix. The Yearflix is about a 20-minute option of that, right? And it's awesome. They do Q&As it's usually reserved for the youngers, right? We did it with my soon-to-be 13-year-old daughter, Annalise, and just 20 minutes, Q&A, stuff that I didn't know about her, stuff I did know, but love hearing her perspective of it. Benchmark videos. You followed up in a couple years where she's grown, where her interests have changed. It's awesome. It is YourHeritageFilm.com. YourHeritageFilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. TexAgs Radio, presented by, who are we presented by?
David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yeah. And
hold CC Creations and
Rollo
they
do the go hour. But this studio, I forget the name of the studio. What is it?
Rollo Insurance Studio.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I just got to remind myself sometimes. Thank you, OB. He's OB. I'm DN. I'm going to read this on the YouTube page from, hey, Guayo Palomo. I see you there. Guayo, ¿qué pasó? Sorry, I got ethnic there.
My favorite El Salvadorian.
Is he number 1 on the list?
Number 1 on the list.
Paul Bunions says on the YouTube page, Texas has allowed more runs in the last 2 games, 23, than A&M has allowed all season long.
A&M's allowed 12 runs?
It says here 20.
10? Oh, 20. Okay, all right. In 12 games, so it's less than 2 a game. Here's what I'm impressed, though. A&M has given up 31 walks in 12 games, which is probably about 2.5 a game, which, you may say it's too many. But that, with a fifth of the season, that projects to 155 walks, which, again, too many. However, as opposed to last, and I'm sure moving forward, they'll start to reduce that number. But that's 100. It projects to 180 or 155, which was 85 fewer. Would be 85 fewer than they gave up last year. Once again, the impact of Max Wiener.
Max.
That's
our guy. We got to get him on the show. I know he does stuff with Bronny, but I talked to him in the lobby. I think you talked to him too. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
He's a Miami guy. My kind of people. You got a joke?
No,
okay,
I don't.
Don't talk about the statue.
They should put a statue up. If they keep going like this, I'd erect a statue for him.
We both gave you the look, fans.
I'm just saying he's done an amazing job. And I hope he continues to do an amazing job here for a long time.
By the way, there's we got a football audience watching on YouTube today. So where you people been, right? Like, basketball loses a couple games, you got to hide. Like, welcome back to the show. And if you're new because you're like a baseball guy only, or you're just, you're just finding us, can you like, comment, and subscribe? We've been stuck on 14,000 subscribers for
we need
ever.
20. We need 20.
But
tell your friends. Tell your family.
If Aggies cared about the growth of, I know they care, by the way. I'm just trying to find a way to get people to like it. But if they cared about the growth of NIL and how A&M or TexAgs can contribute, they would like the page.
And it might help me get a raise.
Nah, it's not going to happen, buddy.
Okay.
I mean, they're trying to come up with a package for you, buddy, all right?
Package out of town.
Yeah. But bottom line is, we feel good about where they are. I know Schloss has some areas he wants to fix. I know Bronny had talked about a couple of them, because that's the beauty or the hard part about baseball. Like, again, when you're really good, you're hitting the ball. You're missing the ball 70% of the time.
True. And, they had from Richards and Bronny's post last night, it sounds like they had a couple of hits, long outs that in a lot of parks would have been home runs. But, this lineup can really mash. Pitching's doing well. There was one error, but I think defensively they've been pretty good, as I understand. And this team could be really special. Now, you have to be special every night, right?
Yeah.
Tennessee a couple years ago looked like far and away the best team in the country, and then lost in the Super Regionals. But
did you see Tony Vitello's interview? I think it was yesterday.
I didn't.
He's not my kind of guy, right? But I did appreciate this.
He's your kind of guy.
But he's not. He's not my guy. He's a hothead. All right?
If he was A&M's coach, you guys would be hanging out together,
buddy. No,
y'all be a tag team wrestling.
No, he's not.
Okay, so
he's not my. Schloss is my style, right? He's detail oriented. That's my style.
Okay.
But one thing I can appreciate about Vitello, apparently there was a fan that was giving one of his players the business, and he went on a little tirade after the game. That's he didn't go as deep as he'd wanted to, but he's basically kind of guy at a bar that I would not talk to. But it was a little bit meaner than that. So
I'm surprised he didn't go after him.
He's the kind of guy that probably would. All right, let's turn our attention to basketball, because it is a huge game.
Huge game.
And by the way, it's a huge game for Mississippi State too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They thought they were in about a week ago. They're at 8-8 right now. Mm-hmm. A&M is at 7-9, which means if they win out,
they would be
9-9, which would mean
probably
they would have the tiebreaker over Mississippi
State.
Now we're worried about LSU.
Yeah, if LSU was to lose, tonight, or their last game I think is against Missouri, and A&M was to win their next two, A&M I think would be as high as the 7th seed.
That is correct. That would get them in, I think.
The weird thing about it is you don't know how you're going to be. If you win tonight against Mississippi State, then you want Arkansas to beat it. You want Arkansas to have beaten LSU. If you lose tonight, you will have wanted LSU to beat Arkansas because you need to avoid the Wednesday first round of the SEC tournament and having to play on Wednesday. You can't finish in the bottom 4.
Right.
And you're 2 games ahead of Arkansas. But Arkansas, of course, swept you, so they have the tiebreaker with 2 games to go. So you clinch a first day bye if you either win one more game, A&M, or if Arkansas loses one.
How about this? Just win.
Just win. Just win. Just beat Mississippi State tonight. Beat Ole Miss, and
make it hard for the committee. Right? Or make it easy for the committee. How about that?
If you're sitting there at 9-9 in the SEC, and some people are saying it's the strongest conference in the country, Big 12 people would disagree, and I understand that. But if one of the two, and there were some saying, and I'm talking about people that get paid to do this, were saying that the SEC could get as many as 9 teams.
Yeah.
Well, if you were fortunate enough to finish 9-9, you'd finish in the top 7. And again, you'd be sitting there with 6 quad one wins. That might earn a lot of grace for some of those disappointing losses.
Yep. By the way, it is Keith Moreland who was the play-by-play guy.
Okay, Keith, I know real well.
Yeah, like him?
I've gambled with him in Kansas City.
Yeah?
He was doing okay. I was having a miserable night.
All right.
But yes, he is a super nice guy.
All right, let's hit a break here.
Some of the biggest forearms I've ever seen.
When we come back, we're going to talk to Coach Tom Schuberth, get his thoughts on everything happening Aggie basketball. He wrote a piece to get you ready for the Mississippi State game. All right, let's talk about QC Kinetics. That's the place to go when you want to enjoy life again. If you got some chronic joint pain out there, if you've got joint pain, you got pain in your knees, your hips, wherever it may be, call QC Kinetics right now because they have regenerative medicine that's going to give you lasting joint pain relief with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. They're literally transforming people's lives with their treatments. The same kind of treatments that athletes have been using for decades, well, they're doing it now right here in the Brazos Valley. They're going to repair that damaged joint tissue. You can walk again, you can run again, you can climb a tree again, you can climb stairs, you can play golf, you can move again, and it's going to be pain-free because that's what they make you do. They make you feel better. QC Kinetics has got tens of thousands of satisfied patients who've reclaimed their mobility, and this is with no pain pills, no risk of surgery, all natural solution. Take action now and live your best life this spring and this summer. And by the way, it's a great use of your tax refund. So call QC Kinetics right now for a free consultation. That number for QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. Mississippi State is 8-8. Texas A&M is 7-9. These two teams are battling for that last spot. We're just mythically thinking about it, or just hypothetically. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Waller Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Olin Buchanan, David Nuño, and Coach Tom Schuberth. What's up, Tom?
Good morning, David. Great to be here.
So we're going to get into some specifics of this game, and but like this is a big, like this is a playoff game in my eyes if A&M is going to make the tournament because of where Mississippi State is in the standings and what A&M has to do to make the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. 7th place team versus the 10th place team, but maybe the biggest game of the evening other than, well, I did see where South Carolina is playing Tennessee, so that may be a little bigger on a national scale, but this is huge for A&M, and if they can get the victory at home and then go on the road against Ole Miss, I think they're back in the picture. That's me personally. I don't know if the so-called experts are agreeing, but I feel that way.
Yeah, I kind of think 3 more wins. Win this one, win against Ole Miss, and win a game in Nashville. That gets you up to 19 wins, which isn't optimal, but I would think 19 wins, a 500 record in the SEC, and 6 quad one wins would be hard to argue against.
According to the metric system they're doing or whatever, they did whatever they were asked to do, A&M. They went out and scheduled a hard non-conference schedule. They won several of those games. To me, if you're going by that, they should get in. But I never trust anything really the NCAA has their hands on. I really don't. So it's a little bit scary. What I would like to see happen, if Mississippi State comes in here, we win, and then we beat Ole Miss. Mississippi State has South Carolina at home, their last game. I think 7 for sure are getting in with the SEC. Maybe we replace Mississippi State at that point. I don't know, but it would be nice to see if we just can win these next 2 games.
Well, Mississippi State right now is 32 in the net rankings,
Okay.
right? Now, they're 19-10. Well, if A&M was to get up to 19 wins, and let's say Mississippi State's hovering around 20-21, you would say, okay, if you're going to take Mississippi State, how do you leave out A&M? Do those 2 victories trump the fact that Mississippi State has 3 quad one wins? A&M, again, has double that. And A&M will have beaten Mississippi State.
Right.
So I think if you win this game, you really have to be at least on the way to being considered over Mississippi State.
I think so as well. It's going to be a really interesting next week and a half for sure.
Tom, when a player is struggling and you're coaching, how do you get their mojo back? What are some techniques maybe you've used in the past? And I'm referring to
Wade Taylor.
4. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you've got to be positive, obviously. I don't think yelling at them and or really emphasizing it is going to just get them out of the slump. I know in the past when we've had players that had bad like weeks or even a month, we'd get maybe like a highlight tape of their times when they were really good. Right. Bring them in there, show them with the team so, it kind of builds their confidence. And not that I don't know Wade Taylor like I would know some of my own players, but that helps. Everybody likes to be told they're good. And I think he needs it. I mean, I see a different player out there. I don't know if you guys do.
I do too.
But almost like it's for the lack of better words, scared. He doesn't really want the ball when you hope he wants the ball. And it's the same because he's such a team player and he's such a good person. You want to see him have that success. And again, I don't think we're an elite team unless Wade Taylor is a major part of it.
Yeah, he's streaky. I think he's 3 of 26 on his last 4 games from 3-point line. But we also know he's the kind of guy that could go 6 of 8. And maybe tonight will be the night. Eventually he's going to break out of it.
Right.
And he needs to break out of it sooner than later, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 20-plus tonight.
Yeah. If he does, it gives me a lot more hope into the winning the 3 more games, right? When you watch his game, outside of maybe the mental aspect of it, what are defenses doing differently? Because they've always been physical with him, but now is it 5-6 straight games? He's getting all the looks.
Correct. One thing I think even though he gets to the foul line a lot, he's not getting as much as he used to. Yeah. So I think they're not fouling him when he gets downhill and gets to the rim. And that's the way you have to guard him because you get him to the foul line. Of course, he hasn't shot it as well as he has in the past from the free throw line. But I think they're doing that and then trying to take him out of his rhythm, being physical with him, bumping him, doing all those things without putting him on the free throw line. And I think he's a little frustrated. That's why I wish we would maybe run a set or two or something that would get him an open look, or if it wasn't for him, it would allow maybe a player on the opposite side of the court to get a look, maybe Carter or whoever, Boots, whoever it may be.
Buzz says that Mississippi State's the best team in the league at the rim, and I got Tolo Smith, who's a 6'11" guy that can really play. So, how do you attack Mississippi State tonight?
Well, tell folks you spent some time with him.
I did. When Tolo was at Western Kentucky as a freshman, he played a lot, and he was playing behind a really good player, so he wanted to transfer. But I used to coach a team made up of really good college players that would go to China for 2 weeks prior to Memorial Day every year. And he was on the team. He was just coming off his freshman year, and he is totally transformed into a totally different player. He's tough. He can score around the basket. Before he was kind of timid. He was more of a finesse player. But the one attribute he still has that's good for the Aggies is he's not a great free throw shooter. So he's better than he was. I remember he struggled early in China against some really good teams, not making his free throws. And then late he made a couple key ones to have us win. But incredible young man. And when he did transfer, I know A&M went really hard after him and had a good chance to get him. But
that would have been the missing piece.
Yeah. That would have been. How was that Chinese experience?
Oh, unbelievable. I've been 13 separate times for 15 days we usually go for. I'm glad you asked. The unit is called Sports Reach, and it's a non-denominational Christian sports ministry. And we've had, NBA players just recently. I'm trying to think. Alfred Payton was with us. He played at Louisiana. Cam Payne that played at Murray State was with us. So we've had Victor Oladipo.
Oh, wow.
We've coached all those guys over there, and it's been a lot of fun. And they love it. China is such a unique and different country. We were scheduled to go during the COVID year. Of course, that hit. And so we have not been back since then. And I've stayed involved with the organization. We've had SEC All-Star team goes. When we first took the team with the SEC, A&M was not a member of it. But I hope that happens again in the future because it's a great experience for the players. They love going overseas and seeing a different opportunity. As you probably know, China is so huge in basketball, and Houston Rockets are the favorite team with the Yao Ming and the Jeremy Lin background. So they love the Houston Rockets.
Known fact, I think OB knows this, I was in the war room the day the Rockets drafted Yao Ming, and I remember the calls to the Chinese government and all that. It was a cool day in my career. We shoot a lot of threes, A&M does. They also allow a lot of three-point attempts. Talk about the weird – I understand why they do it because it forces long rebounds and opportunities for this team to get back. But they're doing it, too, for the other team. So it's kind of like, as a coach, you better hope you make them.
For sure. It seems like we're taking less, but I don't know if that's by design or maybe the defenses are doing that so – they don't give up offensive rebounds. I know we're still not making a high percentage, but it seems like we're playing a little different. I mean, I don't know if we would know that unless we just asked Buzz directly, right, where he would share that with us. But they're tweaking some things to, I think, try to become more effective offensively. Asking about the three-pointers, I love the three-point shot, and because I think it's, you get 3 instead of 2, and you don't have to shoot as high a percentage for your offense to be as efficient. I just think it's good when you take really good quality threes. And the teams that do that, they usually are successful and they shoot a high percentage. They still get their share of offensive rebounds, but it's not a crazy number like we're getting at A&M. The other thing you mentioned, our defense against the three, that does worry me a little bit, especially tonight with the Hubbard kid, the young freshman that I think's been a surprise to them. He was a highly recruited player, the best player in Mississippi. But he's just been – he reminds me of Wade Taylor, young Wade Taylor playing with a little more confidence. So I made the comment on the article that it's going to be interesting to see who makes more, who shoots more, and who shoots the deepest one because they both have incredible range. So I think we've got to stop their 3 points, and then we've got to – I'm like Olin. I think Wade's going to have an incredible night. I just got a good feeling.
Mississippi State's not a great three-point shooting team. They're okay. They're 10th in the SEC in 3-point shooting. So if you keep them from just going crazy there, and then, quite frankly, you're probably going to have to hack them some when they get in. Maybe you can keep that score at a reasonable rate where, you can pull one out. I feel pretty good about tonight's game. Even Tolo Smith scares the hell out of me. But beyond that, I think if they can just keep him from dominating, I feel pretty good about tonight.
Is it about attacking the rim?
I think so. And, when Buzz made that comment about the rim, I thought it was interesting. So I looked at some numbers. They are very effective at the rim scoring. Defensively, to me, that always scares me when we play teams that are really good protecting the rim.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State's similar to us. They don't really have a lot of shot blockers. Tolu Smith's not going to go out there like Ole Miss's guys or Arkansas even, and some of the Tennessee. They've got guys that protect that rim and block a lot of shots. So that's encouraging. I think we'll be able to score around the rim. It's whether we can stop them, and I'm sure that's what Buzz was emphasizing.
See if you can't score around the rim and get a bunch of and ones.
And one.
So, because if you can get that bucket plus get Tolo in some foul trouble, I don't know if you can, but man, that would be the recipe for success.
And one more segment from you. All right, sound good? Because I want to ask you about Manny Obaseki. Okay. We'll come back with more with Tom Schuberth here in studio. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I know you're a basketball coach, Tom Schuberth, with us. Do you pay attention to the other sports in town a little bit, seeing what baseball's doing? We'll follow football?
Well, phenomenal. I love listening to the show and listening to the other coaches, because I like their philosophy, and they're all different, but they're, obviously A&M has an incredible array of talented coaches. But I am aware that our baseball team is undefeated. I love listening to Coach Schloss with you guys and just on his interviews. And the fact that, they're undefeated, and I think I was told they were 7th right now in the country. So
they'll move up.
Yeah, I think
they're
so.
going to move up.
If you remember, in the SEC before A&M entered, there was a coach at Mississippi State named Ron Polk. I don't know if you know that name. Very prominent, and every baseball coach in America knows him. So I'm very good friends with Coach Polk. I still talk to him to this day. And so he kind of keeps me up with what's going on in baseball. What I find is ironic, they can't even get any more scholarships, but you can pay a guy $1 million. So explain that rule to me, But anyway, I'm very impressed with what A&M does in the sports other than men's basketball. They're just incredible.
Figurine Champ says Coach Schuberth's segment has been an excellent addition to the show. Appreciate that. Thank you, Figurine. Let's talk about Manny Obaseki. I think I'm his guy. Like I'm his cheerleader. I like the way he plays. He drives me crazy sometimes, but that's why maybe I like him. What have you seen from Manny recently?
He's unique. He's like hard to stop. I can tell you. I would hate to have to guard him because he can get an angle and get to that basket. I used to get he and Boots mixed up. I don't know if you guys did, with the exception if one's hair's a little longer, but they were so similar in their style of play. They can get to the basket, get fouled. And it's great to see him playing the way he is the last 2 ball games. He's playing with confidence. I listened to his interview yesterday. So impressive, how he handled himself. And, he knows how fragile it is, too. I mean, you could have 2 good games and not play well the next, but I think he's so mature, and he's a great shot in the arm for the Aggies. I think he's going to be the guy that kind of takes off over for where not having Henry, and then if Wade or Boots are struggling, I hope he keeps playing as well as he can. I don't like putting all the main responsibilities him handling the ball. I don't know how you feel about that.
I like him sometimes touching the ball.
Correct.
Right.
If when he's the main guy and he's bringing it up all the time, he scares me. I mean, I'm not comfortable when we really need to protect the basketball when he has it in his hands.
Yeah, I don't like him having to change direction facing the basket. Now, he likes to get the ball and try to back in. And he's a strong guy, and he can back in on guys and then contort his body and get sometimes he takes shots. You're like, oh, my gosh, that's terrible. Oh, it went in, that kind of thing. But I've seen him before when he's trying to attack the basket and having to change direction, and that's not his strength.
Well, when he and Solo are on the court at the same time, that's a lot of athleticism to stop. And, sometimes they can be a bit crazy, but when they're reined in, they're so good, man.
They really are. Both those guys are great defenders. I mean, they cause so much havoc for the offense of the other team. You never know what they're going to do, and they're always probing and kind of keeping them, on alert. So
who do you put on the Hubbard kid tonight then?
Well, our length, I would go at length. He's 5'10", so, Solo, he's a great defender, even on perimeter guys. I like Andy guarding him at times,
Yeah.
I know we've been switching, most of the season. I'm sure they tweak it for each team. But I have no problem with one of our post players guarding Hubbard because of their length. He gets up on his shot. Where Wade shoots it quicker, his release is like as quick as you can get. Hubbard kind of elevates, even though he's 5'10", and he shoots it deep. He's a good player, and he's like Wade. And when he gets going, he's a tough shot maker. He'll take bad shots, and he'll go in, and they let him do it. So,
Tom, thank you, sir.
You're more than welcome. Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate you. All right, when we come back here on TexAgs Radio, we'll have John Harris, footballtakeover.com, Texans sideline reporter. Trisha Ford coming in at 9:35. OB, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Tom as well. We'll see you here in a few minutes. All right, we're rolling out here on a Wednesday. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline. We're joined by footballtakeover.com's Texan sideline reporter, John Harris. Juan Harris. What's up, Johnny?
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm well. You have a good time at the Combine last week?
Yeah, it was good. What's your shirt say?
Brian Boxing.
Oh, very nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
My buddy
cool.
Carl Payne over there running the show, teaching me how to kill people.
Very nice.
Them and Brazos Valley MMA. Yeah.
Like you needed instruction on that.
Well,
I've seen you on a basketball court.
But Johnny,
you already had lessons, bro.
No, I just had the temper. I didn't have the training. Now I'm getting the traiking.
Oh, now you can really kill people. Okay.
Well, no, just the people in this office. That's it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah, Combine was good, man. It was. I don't know if it was a big day for the Aggies. Edge running 4.5 was probably to be expected, so I thought that was good. McKinley, is a big guy. Like what really are you going to get excited about with McKinley? I don't think there was anything there. I think that's, there were a couple of big dudes that did some, kind of freaky things, but really kind of wasn't. I'm trying to think. Damani didn't. I think he just did the position drills, if I remember correctly. So it's not a tremendous weekend for the Aggies. Unfortunately, it was an amazing weekend for that other team in Austin. Really, really big weekend. No, man, it's cool. I like the basketball. I don't mind it.
They can't see. They can't see the change.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's fine.
Johnny, let's we'll get back to Combine here in a minute, but I was two emotions. Happy for Mike Evans because I think it's awesome. His story will probably end at Tampa, right? And I think it's cool to spend in today's world of sports to spend your entire career at one place where you've won a Super Bowl, by the way. But, man, I sure wanted him in the Texans uniform.
You weren't alone. And I want to make sure I say this in the most respectful way. I didn't. And I know people hear that like, oh, you suck, John. No, listen. It wasn't so much I didn't want Mike Evans. I didn't want the Texans to pay $25 million plus per year for a wide receiver. I just feel like if the Texans were one player away, if they just really felt like, man, CJ needed to have this one dude to throw the ball to, and that was going to change everything. But we've got some holes at other spots. And in fact, holes in which we've got to spend some money or draft capital to go get a player at other spots. So it really had nothing to do with Mike per se. It had everything to do with making sure financially you were doing the right things. Now, did I allow myself at certain points to think about an offense of CJ Stroud throwing to Tank, Nico, and Mike? Yeah, I did. But it didn't last long because I also knew that you were gonna have to pay a Maserati price. And even though you have the money to be able to do it, you weren't going to be able to pay for the other things that you needed to do. And this is also a wide receiver class that is just chock full of studs. There's studs everywhere. And so you're eventually going to have to pay Nico. Eventually going to have to pay Tank. And when I say the eventuality for Nico is a lot sooner than he's going into his fourth year. So you're going to have to start paying Nico big dollars if you're going to keep him starting in 25. Well, if all of a sudden you've got a bunch of money wrapped up in any receiver, whether it's Mike or otherwise, you just can't do it. So it came down to me about just fiscal responsibility for the team. And when we wake up on whatever that is, Monday or Tuesday or whatever day it was announced, it's 2 years, $52 million. And you do the simple math. That's $26 million APY. Now I know it's not how the contract breaks down, but that's $52 million, 26 per year. And you're like, man, we're going to have to pay Nico a pretty solid chunk. Dude's 25. We're going to have to pay him a lot of money, especially if he has another great year. So could you afford to put $20 million on Nico and $25 to $26 million on Mike? I mean, that's just not fiscally responsible. So it comes off in some sense of me saying, I don't like Mike. I love Mike. I was the one who told you I think he should go to the Hall of Fame first ballot. I'm a huge fan of Mike Evans. I'll tell you what I'm not a huge fan of, though, David. I'm not always a huge fan of guys coming back home. And I know, Galveston, Houston, like I know there's some separation, but not a lot. I am not a huge fan of guys coming back home because I think home gets very distracting.
Yeah.
And there are way more people that start grabbing at you and tugging at you, and you have those relationships. And I couldn't help. There's so many people over the years. That's why I always thought Vince Young coming to Houston would have been an absolute disaster, because there are just so many people that would have access to him. All his guys in the neighborhood, all his family members that are still around. It would have just been a disaster. And so I worry about that. Now, Mike is a vet. Could he have handled it? Probably so. But I still feel like, man, when you go home, there are just so many people just pulling at you that didn't have the opportunity to do it when you were elsewhere. And Mike is, I'll make sure I say this clearly, Mike is not Aaron Hernandez at all. At all. But watching the dynasty, I couldn't help but think about Aaron Hernandez. And eventually, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking this, and then somebody said it's like, you know what, Aaron Hernandez would have been better served going to Seattle and playing in Seattle, because he would have got away from all that junk that was happening in Connecticut. Those guys all had still connections to him. He wanted to continue to run with that gang. Well, if he's in Seattle, he can't do that as much. Now, maybe in the offseason, sure, and that would have been Seattle's problem. But the worst thing was he's drafted in New England. They have an in 24/7, 365, the Aaron Hernandez. And there's some bad guys. So I just don't love for guys to be in their – and the cases, all kind of vary, Sometimes it's just you're at home and, mom's making your meals. Maybe you're living at home. You need to be off on your own, those kind of things. I mean, I just don't love when guys come back to where they're from unless they are wired a particular way. Now, I think Mike is wired that way, so I think he could have done okay with it, but you just never know. And so there were a lot of reasons where I felt like it wasn't the right move, and I allowed myself to go there, but I just knew it wasn't going to happen. And I don't want it to be said that, oh, John doesn't like Mike Evans, and I'm sure that's probably happening in the chat or whatever. It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with I didn't want to pay a really expensive wide receiver the value he deserved. And Mike deserves every dollar of that contract. Mike deserves it, not only for what he's done, but what he's going to do. And I'm glad Tampa Bay gave that to him. And I'm glad that he can hopefully continue on his career in Tampa Bay. Now, if he wanted to take $10 million a year, I would have jumped all over it, because that would have made some fiscal responsibility sense. But I knew that wasn't going to happen for Mike, and I didn't want him to do that. And so I was one of the lone voices in Houston saying, I don't love it, man. And of course, when you've got John Lopez on the radio here in Houston, you've got people that are connected to the city of Houston and want Mike to come back home. They're like, screw it, we got the money. Like, man, you got to think about being fiscally responsible. And this team isn't one player away. If the team had been one receiver away, Mike Evans would have been the perfect fit, but we're not. And so get in the draft, get a young one, bring him in. You've already got some vets on the team already at receiver. Make it a competition between Mechie, Hutchinson, Robert Woods, et cetera, and then go on from there. But I'm glad for Mike that he's getting paid. That's the biggest thing. I'm glad for Mike that he's getting paid. He deserves every dollar of that money from Tampa Bay.
What about Dalton Schultz signing? I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, but how big was that for CJ to have one of his favorite targets?
It's good. Quote our buddy Sean Pendergast. He talked about this as the season was over, because there's a lot of talk about Gerard moving on. There's a lot of talk about Bobby Slowick moving on. And it was like, man, CJ Stroud's ecosystem is going to change, but you really don't want it to. You want to keep it as consistent as you possibly can, right? So the offensive line, you're bringing back 4 of the 5 starters. Hopefully Titus will be healthy. Now you'll reconfigure them, but you're bringing them back. You got Tank and Nico on the outside. Bobby Slowick and Gerard Johnson are coming back. Bill Lazor's still going to be here. Those are all great things to happen for CJ. And then, oh, by the way, they're not taking away his tight end Whoopi, his blanket, his security blanket in Dalton Schultz. And the fact that Dalton wanted to be here, I'll tell this quick story. I knew Dalton wanted to be here. He signed a 1-year deal after leaving Dallas. man, those deals are always kind of interesting to me, but I always like him because the player's motivated, so he's going to play well. And so what ends up happening is if he's not motivated and he just kind of sulks, well, it's 1 year. You get rid of him. You're done. Move on. But if the guy plays really well, he's played really well for you. He gave you a great season. He also, if he's played well, he's going to have good memories of the place. He probably wants to sign here. And so that was kind of my feeling, like, okay, we'll have one of those two things happen with Dalton Schultz. So he played Cincinnati, at Cincinnati. Dalton he had a great day. He made a great catch on a third down that we had to have in a final drive. And so I always do my post-game interview with the player. I kind of stand off in the back of the locker room, kind of out of the way. And so I'm standing by the door, and Dalton kind of walks up, shake hands, we talk a little bit, and he goes, hey, have you seen 7? And I said, no, he hasn't come in yet. And he goes, okay. And he walked out of the locker room, and he walked down to the tunnel. So CJ was doing his final TV interview, and Dalton walked almost all the way out to the field so that he could talk to him walking into the locker room. And I was like, man, they got a connection. And that's pretty cool. And then you heard Dalton say, okay, you just got the feeling like, okay, he wants to be here. And then Super Bowl week, he said to our guys on Sports Radio 610, yeah, he really wanted to be here. And they got the contract done to be here. So he's got his top tight end. He's got his 2 top receivers coming back. He's got his OC. He's got his quarterback coach. He's got his offense, 80% of his offensive line coming back. There's not much changing. They can just hit the ground running once they get to OTAs, get to training camp. They don't have to start at square one. They could just hit it and go. And I love that for CJ. I love it for Dalton. I think the money is right. It's basically the franchise tag number, which, look, he's a top 7 tight end at worst. So giving him kind of franchise tag number for the next 3 years makes some sense. So you keep the ecosystem in place, intact. Dalton stays here, and hopefully he'll go win a Super Bowl with the Texans because they didn't do that with the Cowboys. So I get my shot in there.
Johnny, what do you think happened to Russell Wilson? Because I'm looking at his career numbers here, and obviously it looks like the Broncos are moving on. I mean, 2020, he had a really nice year. 2021, pretty good year, 25-6, right? 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But since then, he's just not the same guy. Where have you seen his game change? Is it age? I mean, other quarterbacks are playing longer than him, but what's going on there?
I don't want to use age is, I'm nodding. Age is part of it, but I think what happened was he started to slow down. I mean, literally as a mobile quarterback, he started to slow down. It started probably showing. It's interesting you say that 2020 season. At the end of that 2020 season, it really started to show itself. Then they changed the offense. They brought in Shane Waldron in 2021. And at the beginning of it, he was sticking to the game plan, and it was working fine. But then he kind of reverted to some old bad habits. He'd hold the ball too long. He tried to escape. He tried to do his Russell Wilson thing. And now all of a sudden, defensive linemen were catching up to him. And it was like, whoa, he's not able to get out of the pocket and kind of create the off-scheduled music anymore. He's off-key, if you will. He can't improv as much as he used to. And so he's playing outside the scheme, but he's not got the physical skills at this point. They're starting to break down, and it's starting to really show in his game. And so I think it really showed in Denver. Well, the first year in Denver, you can't put anything on. I mean, Hackett it was just a mess. But Sean Payton asked for someone that reads sheet music, and Russell Wilson is a guy that improv'd and played off script. And that was really never gonna fit. And I think, and I'll say, just outsider, just watching, it feels like there's this inauthentic nature of Russell Wilson. Like, he just feels inauthentic. And it's just kind of outsider looking in. I feel like the defensive players for Seattle, very boisterous guys, knew it for a very long time. But Russell was able to overcome it because he could always move. He could always create something out of structure. Well, then all of a sudden, when he wasn't able to do that as much, then you saw the numbers go. And so I think it's going to be really difficult for him to find a job. He got himself back in shape for this year. And I saw him here up close, and it was kind of the Russell Wilson career in a nutshell. He showed he couldn't move as much. He still could throw the deep ball and be accurate with the deep ball. but he made some decisions that, trying to hold the ball a little bit too long, that killed him, or the interception at the end of the game. So there's just, but you held your breath because, it's Russell Wilson. He's just not that guy anymore. Physically, he's not that guy anymore. I don't think he's ever been that guy to play in structure. And so now he's playing for a coach where you kind of have to do that, or you're expected to do that. And look, feel how you will about Sean Payton. I think he's probably a pretty difficult guy to play for. So I think you throw all that into a big Russell Wilson bouillabaisse, and it comes out, whoa, not good. So I think it gets really tricky now because I think a team is going to sign him. They'll sign him to the minimum. He's going to make $39 million. The team doesn't have to pay $39 million. They can pay a minimum of $1 million and get Russell Wilson. It's just a matter of what team is it? Atlanta? Pittsburgh? Does he end up having to be a backup? Does he have to go to Joe Flacco route? Be a backup. Starter kind of fails, and he steps in and saves the day. Does he have to be a bridge quarterback where, like New England, where he's the starter, but New England also drafts a quarterback? I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in for Russell. He's done incredible things, but I hate to say, but it feels over. It feels over. Can it be resuscitated? Maybe. We've seen that with some guys. Ryan Tannehill got resuscitated in Tennessee. Joe Flacco resuscitated in Cleveland. I just don't know for Russell where that spot's going to be where someone can bring him back to life.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
It was funny. As I was going through there, I'm thinking, do I call him a Hall of Famer? That's such a great question. He went to 2 Super Bowls. He won 1. He's been in 9 Pro Bowls. I think that's the number. He was the franchise in Seattle for a long time. Man. I'll give you this one. Who's more of a Hall of Famer, Eli Manning or Russell Wilson?
Eli's got the 2.
Russell's got 1.
I think Russell was better.
Russell made more Pro Bowls than Eli.
Russell was more elite
Eli
during his
played
time.
very well in the playoffs.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said Russell was more elite at his time.
Yeah.
But Eli has the 2 rings.
I think people probably, if you asked which one in their prime would you not want to face, they'd say, I wouldn't want to face Russell Wilson. But in a playoff clutch situation, I don't know, I want to face Eli. So, I don't know. I just thought about that one. I do think that Russell's going to go in the Hall of Fame. But the next couple of years could maybe tell a little bit more of the story. And that's going to be interesting because you could say from 2012 to 2020, 2021, that's 8 or 9 years. That's really, really good. But the fall off has been so significant that I don't know, is 8 or 9 years good enough to tell a Hall of Fame story? I think it probably is because he went to the Pro Bowl 9 of those years. So I think he's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. It may not be first ballot, but I think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Talking to John Harris here on TexAgs Radio. Johnny, are we going to get to a point where these athletes going to the Combine decide, you know what, I don't need to go to the Combine, and we have big groups of stars, Caleb Williams of the world, say, nah, I'm not going to go?
It's interesting because it kind of rides the wave, David. I've seen years, because this discussion we probably had maybe 5 to 7 years ago. Guys are going to the Combine, they weren't doing much. Then, because the Combine shed such a light on these guys were going back and they were doing everything at the Combine. Now we're kind of swinging back the other way. So I feel like it's cyclical. But I do feel like there are probably some guys that regret not doing things at the Combine. Not Caleb. I mean, Caleb knows he's going to be the first pick. Or worst case, second pick. So when you have the stroke, use it. And I think Caleb's got the stroke. Now, in the NFL draft world, that stroke only goes so far. What I found interesting was that Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors never even showed up. They went home. Like, what? Caleb Williams, all day Saturday, from the beginning of the day to the end of the night, he was one of the last ones to leave the building. All this talk about Caleb and, off the field, he's such a problem, all this. Man, Caleb was there the entire time. His interviews were great. Some jackass on Twitter from some fantasy football site, yelled out the first question and then put it on Twitter as if he was this king of calling Caleb Williams on a carpet. I was like, you're a chode. Caleb Williams handled that question and a bunch of others really, really well. His interviews on TV were fantastic. He did this thing of eating gummy candy with Kimmy Checks on NFL Network, and I sat and watched the whole thing. I just get a good feel from him. You think he's a competitor? Yeah, he's a little unique. He's a little different, and he's calling the shots. Well, yeah, he can do that. I think some others, it's going to be really difficult for them to be able to do that. Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison decided, we're not really going to do that. So some team might say, you know what? We sat down with Roma Dunze at the Combine, and we love him. So, yeah, we're going to take him instead. We have him ranked higher than the other guys. So I do think something like that happens, and it becomes crystal clear that a guy would have been drafted in a certain spot, and it cost him money because he didn't do anything at the Combine. That's when it'll have an impact. And it felt like 5-7 years ago, it was having an impact. There were some guys that were chastised for not doing anything at the Combine. Maybe they felt it in their draft selection. And so, no, you do everything at the Combine. I don't know. I mean, I think it comes down to some competition. Sometimes these guys have been dealing with things. They're hurt. The guys that always fascinate me, and you can see right through them, are the guys that are like, nope, not running the 40. They do everything else. Oh, I got kind of a mild hamstring. Oh, so the hamstring doesn't hurt you when you're doing the 3-cone? Okay. So run your 40, get it over with, whatever. I mean, I think the fact that you have a pro day, it forces, it gives the opportunity to wait and delay it and be in better shape or whatever the case might be. So I do think it'll go back, David, the other way. But I do feel like quarterbacks in particular that are coming out of this draft, they're going to be going, if they're good, they're going to go 1, 2, 3. They're going to go at the top. They can kind of dictate. They've got the stroke. They can use it. That's not going to be for 99% of the kids at the Combine, that prospects in the Combine. That's not happening. Go ahead, third-round linebacker, go ahead and get all high and mighty about where you're supposed to be. You'll get not drafted. I've seen that happen. So it's an interesting kind of give or take. I just hope it stays in Indy, and I hope that whatever guys decide to compete, they put on a show like they did last weekend. That was pretty cool.
Johnny, appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, man. Take care, brother.
Footballtakeover.com. Go check out the great stuff there. Always updating it with awesome information. All right, we'll hit a break. Open segment with around the SEC. Right now, 12 under 12. Did you or someone you know graduate from Texas A&M within the last 12 years? And are you leading by example in business or in service? If so, the Association of Former Students would like to invite you to nominate yourself or someone that you know for the 12 under 12 Young Alumni Spotlight. So each year, the association recognizes a dozen Aggies who have graduated within the last 12 years for their business accomplishments, civic or military service, philanthropic efforts, and outstanding representation of A&M's core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service. So previous year honorees have been included in leaders in business, higher education, architects, petroleum engineers, nonprofit executives, physicians, veterans, and members of the U.S. Armed Forces. So 2024 nominations close pretty soon, Sunday, March 31st. So be sure to submit a nomination very soon. To learn more about that recognition and submit a nomination, visit tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. That is tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. Right there. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's do a little around the SEC. We go to the Angry Elephant, where I'll be on Saturday, 1 to 3 o'clock. I think Billy will be with me. Who knows who else will show up. It'll be a good time. But let's go to the Angry Elephant News, and the one in Magnolia, by the way. We'll be at the one in Magnolia. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Eric Casares with Around the SEC.
Yeah, David. So let's go ahead and start with some college football. So first of all, Arch Manning, he said he wants to be that guy. We finally got an answer as to why he didn't opt in to the EA college football video game. So as y'all know, that over 10,000 players have already opted in. You get $600 from EA plus a free copy of the game. We all know that Arch Manning is making a lot of money. He says he's making about $2.8 million in NIL. So I mean, he's making a lot of money in that realm. Do you think it's interesting, the fact that, like, he didn't opt in? Because he said it, he wants to be that guy, he wants to prove himself. But at the same time, I kind of look at it like, maybe, wouldn't it be more of a distraction if you don't opt in? You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Look, whatever an athlete needs to get their mind right, I think it's totally fine. When I first heard the excuse, I just want to be focused on football, I was like, whatever. Like, I mean, I can go to the restroom and go to work. It still works. You can focus on more than one thing. All that being said, I kind of can appreciate, like, hey, I want to prove something first before I'm on a video game. And when you're as financially well off as they are, I get it. But I see your point as well. Is it a distraction? No. I mean, do you think it's for social media people to talk about and talk show hosts? I don't think that people in the locker room like, can you believe Arch? Can't believe that dude. That dude sucks. I don't think that's happening.
Yep, 100%. Also staying in the realm of college football, Bruce Feldman ranks college football's top 25 head coaches after Nick Saban.
Feldman?
Bruce Feldman.
Feldman. Yeah. Feynman's that's his uncle. Bruce Feynman is his uncle. Yeah.
Bruce Feldman, ranks his top 25 head coaches after Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh's departure. 7 from the SEC, David. I want you to guess some of these head coaches. First of all, we all know who number 1 is, but Kirby Smart. I mean, it's 9th season at Georgia, 13-1 record in 2023. Didn't get to defend the national championship, didn't go for the three-peat, but 94-16 career record with Georgia, 56-9 SEC play. So he's obviously coming at number 1. Can you guess who the next coach is in the SEC? He's ranked number 4.
You want me to go to 4, so not even 2?
Well, 2 and 3 weren't from the SEC, but it was Dabo Swinney, which I thought was kind of a little bit of a hot take, considering that the season that they had last year. And then Lance Lepoid was from Kansas.
Leopold? Okay.
Yeah, Leopold was 3rd. So
his 4th, I would assume,
you got it.
If it's an SEC guy, it's either going to be Lane, because of the success Lane had last year and in the last couple years, or Kalen DeBoer, who took over for Alabama. Okay.
Yep, Kalen DeBoer comes in at number 4, CFP finals appearance in his 2nd season at Washington, proven winner. And also takes over for Saban, which is probably the hardest college football job that a coach can have at this point.
Yeah. And then when's the next SEC coach?
Number 6, Brian Kelly for LSU. Back-to-back 10-win seasons. Obviously led Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy this past season. Malik Neighbors is projected to be a top 10 pick in the NFL Draft this season. Kelly found success with Notre Dame, had 6 10-win seasons with the Fighting Irish. So consistency is why he's been on this list. But they said that the reason he's not any higher is because of his performance to win, his ability to win big games in his career.
Is Lane Kiffin the next one?
The next one was actually Steve Sarkisian at number 11.
Okay.
And then after that, a couple later, Mark Stoops. Stoops. Man, I'm all over the place
Mark
today.
Stoops ahead of Lane?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's at 14,
and
Kentucky.
In front of Josh Heupel?
Josh Heupel is 17.
Okay.
And then Lane Kiffin at 21.
That's interesting. And is Mike Elko not on the list?
Mike Elko is not in the top 25, which I was really shocked. I was really shocked. What do you think about that?
I hate the list.
You hate it?
Yeah, I like Bruce Feynman's better than Bruce Feldman's. How about that? Like, I am not a Lane Kiffin guy, but the Mark Stoops ahead of Lane Kiffin. Let me make sure I understand. The best coaches in college football, right?
Yeah, top 25 coaches.
Top 25 coaches in college football. Mark Stoops ahead of Lane Kiffin based on the last 3-year sample size? No. Stupid.
Yeah.
Estúpido. Sorry. Nick, do you agree with this? Or, like, Nick, chime in. Are you there?
I'm here, yes.
What do you think? I mean, it's
again,
Mark Stoops ahead of Lane Kiffin right now?
Yeah, that's just silly. That's just silly.
I just don't understand, like how that's even a thing.
off-season clickbait is all that list is.
It's so damn.
In my opinion.
So you know how you were talking about Bruce Feldman, David?
And Feynman, yeah.
Yeah, so Feldman, the one who made the list, he's actually been getting a lot of buzz for his Dabo Sweeney at number 2. That's what's caught the most buzz so far.
Well, you know what's catching more buzz than that? Texas A&M softball. Trisha Ford's in the lobby, so we got to get to a break. Let's do this. Let's hit a break here. Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They got great deals on the website. They got great people that work there. They got great prices. What other great thing can I say about them? It's the great experience, great coffee when you go there, great trade-in value. Great. Oprah greats, right? You're just getting greatness when you go there. It's great pricing, especially when you're looking for a trade-in value. You want to go there because they're going to give top dollar. They're going to get you the right pricing point. They're going to help you find the vehicle that fits your family needs. And the entire experience, you're going to leave saying, wow, that was worth it. That was certainly worth it. That's what they do there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And they've been doing it for a long time. That's why I bought a car there. And I've been very happy with our Tahoe there. It's the right size for us. We test drove it. The whole experience was great. So thank you to Caldwell Country Chevrolet for that. 15-minute drive, Brian to Caldwell. Short conversation away. When you get there, you'll be very pleased because I lost my train of thought for a moment. But it is the place to go, 15 minutes away, Brian to Caldwell. Highway 21 at Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. One day, Trisha Ford and I are going to do a podcast of the things we talk about during the break. But we can't do that today. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. 19-2 off to the hottest start since 2017. And obviously, you host North Texas later on today. How are you doing?
Good. Very good.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, we got one more non-conference game, and then we're at it. We're in the middle of it.
So when you are at this point with conference coming, you know how big that's going to be.
Yeah.
How difficult is it in years past to make sure that your team isn't looking ahead, like taking care of business tonight?
Yeah, and it's actually been a little bit of an issue if you look at us this year. A couple of our games we haven't kind of played in the moment. So, we had a really good practice yesterday. Usually on Tuesdays it's kind of an individual group day working on some things, and we brought the whole team out, kind of tidied up some things. And really it becomes our ability to play consistently every single day, whether it's conference, whether it's North Texas, whether it's whoever. At the end of the day, I have to come out and produce the way I'm supposed to produce. So I don't know. I'm excited.
Every time you're here, and for good reason, we talk about Emily Kennedy. Yes. All right. Fastest Aggie pitcher to reach 10 wins in the season since Samantha Show did it. Also, let's see what other numbers I have. Leads the nation in wins with 10, shutouts with 5, while 84 strikeouts are the 4th most in the country. I can keep going. I mean, a lot of good accolades coming.
Yeah, she's put in the work. I mean, the game knows. And as much of that sounds like a cliche, that kid has worked, and she's gone through some struggles, but believed in the process. And now, I keep talking about we're having such different conversations with her. It's not, okay, how are you feeling? It's okay, let's, dial down a little bit here. Let's elevate a little bit more in this zone. Hey, they're swinging first pitch. Let's expand first pitch, and then you can dial back. We're just having much more elevated conversations, and I think you see that in her play.
Isn't that fantastic? Like when you can see that development and the coach-player relationship that can get to that point.
Yeah, it's actually the high, right? It's why we do what we do. To see them, these are things that they develop on the field, but really these are going to be characteristics that she's going to bring on in life. And so when you start to see them grow as humans out there, it's really rewarding.
So I know coaches don't like to, pick one individual player. But we're probably going to get into that here in a second. But here's some team stuff to get into. A&M ranks in the top 20 in the nation in several categories, 8th most in home runs, which is great, number 9 in slugging percentage, and strikeout to walk ratio as well. Numbers that I'm sure you love to see.
Yeah, we do pay attention. A lot of we call it the free base game. So how many walks, strikeouts, hit batters. So we're trying to get our walks and hit by pitches, so your free bases to be obviously a lot more than your strikeouts, and we're doing a really good job. So that's something that we work hard on. But I think that the thing is Coach Harger, I think he's the best. Obviously I do. That's why I hired him. And I just think you look at what he has done at every place that we've been at. We get better every single year, and it's really just his ability to, first year, okay, give him a little bit of nuggets, and then second year, here's some more. And really just, we call it shrinking the strike zone.
Yeah.
We got to hunt the middle of the plate.
How about the start Allie's had?
Yeah, just phenomenal. Somebody that, again, has put in a lot of extra work. Everybody works 20 hours a week. We can all practice 20 hours, but she comes in and she'll watch film on her own. She'll get some extra cuts on her own. And she's starting to really understand what her swing does and what pitches she needs to hunt.
Is there anything in particular tonight you need to see, want to see?
I want us to see us come out and play Aggie softball, no matter who's on the other side of the field, just for us to stay consistent. And we've been consistent. I'm a typical coach, 19-2. Those 2 games that we should have won, we could have won, and we just didn't play our kind of game. And so for me, I'm looking for that consistency of being able to, pump the zone when we need to, hunt strikes, and then play clean defense. I think that's probably our biggest thing this weekend is playing some clean defense.
Earlier in the show, we were talking about the baseball team's big victory against Texas, and I want to ask you about that. But we're like, hey, Texas, you're about to find out the SEC is a different animal in baseball. Oh, and it's a different animal in football. Oh, and it's a different animal in basketball. It's a different animal in softball.
Yeah.
The conference slate that's coming up, it's a
yeah,
it's
it's a doozer. Yeah, but that's the fun, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I look at it. I love to compete. I want our players to be that same way. And so this is where the good stuff starts. And so you're going to be able to find out. You don't come to Texas A&M, you don't come to the SEC if you don't want to play against the best. this isn't the place for you. And you're going to really be able to challenge yourself on the field and be able to figure out kind of where you stand and what you need to work on. And those that kind of take that in stride and get better really, elevate.
Well, you come to the SEC for that. But when you're in the SEC and your team is not at that level, you probably don't look forward to that, like Vanderbilt in football, right? But you believe in what you have.
I do. I think we've developed a really good program. We've done it in several places, and I think that over time we've kind of shown that we are capable of doing that. So I think there's a way to get to them. I think there's a way to get to these athletes to get them to compete at a really, really high level, but also enjoy it and have fun.
Yeah. Is there something this non-conference season that sticks out to you like, you know what, we're better at this than I kind of expected?
Yeah, it was probably our first weekend, to be honest with you, where we started to play, and sometimes that goes both ways. They're nervous and trying to make things happen, and you could just feel the energy. And we kind of, as a staff, came up to the office after I think Saturday's games, and we were just like, they might be starting to figure this out. And we're going to have ups and downs throughout the year, but as a whole, I think they stick together and working hard for each other.
Pitching staff, 1.62 ERA, 12th in the country. What do you like about the staff? And obviously we talked to Emily, but just beyond.
Yeah, well, I won't fire the pitching coach as of now. Yeah. But I think they do a really good job of balancing each other out. Their relationship off the field is huge. They do a great job, but they understand what Emily Kennedy does really well, what Shaylee Ackerman does really well, what Brooke Vestal does very well, and Emily Levitt, and so they play off of each other. So we'll, again, have conversations, okay, because I let them know, hey, this is what we're going to look like for today against North Texas. And they're going to, and so Brooke Vestal will be responding. Her response will be, okay, so Em's going to hunt this part of the zone, so then now I have to hunt this part of the zone. And so they understand like who they come in after and what that looks like from a matchup perspective.
How about last night for the Aggie baseball team?
Oh man, I watched. I was in the office getting ready for North Texas, and that was sweet. Anytime we get to beat those guys and give them a good whooping, I enjoy it.
So Schloss has this personality that I think all coaches can kind of like. I love that. Like he's detailed, disciplined. Yeah. He also's got his players back. He'll say it. You know?
Yeah. Jim and I have a really good relationship. We got to do some, speaking to some donors all in the fall, and so we got to spend a lot of time together. And so I think very, very highly of him. I'll pick his brain about some things, but he's a very likable guy.
Is it okay to ask you about the South Carolina series with a game in front, like getting off started to a good start, and do you know your rotation yet?
I have a pretty good idea,
Okay.
Yeah. But South Carolina is going to give us a little bit. Vaughter, Alana Vaughter is a transfer pitcher that came in. She came from Stanford, so I have a lot of information on her. We are pretty familiar. Our first year, we got her. Her second year, she got us. So now this is kind of the rubber match, I guess, that you would say. But somebody that I think her ERA is in the low ones as well, down ball pitcher with a phenomenal changeup. And then they have a freshman, Sage Marjeko, that's really good, and she can go up and down. She's primarily an up pitcher. So that'll give us a little bit, I don't imagine it being a 9-run game either way. I think they're going to be close games, but they play really good defense. It's going to be whether or not our pitching can be just enough.
Good luck. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks so much.
Trisha Ford. All right, when we come back, Brandon Leone should stop by. He's in the lobby. We'll chit-chat with Brandon before we hit recruiting country with Ryan Brauninger. That and more next on TexAgs. All right, so Brandon Leone and I have spoken more this break than we did Saturday at the Angry Elephant in Little Elm. We got to hang out. We'll be at the one in Magnolia on Saturday. I'll be there. I don't think Brandon will be there unless he wants to make the 3.5-hour drive. But we're going to be there. But we spoke more because you were talking to the people. You had family with you. Lanham was there with us. It was a good time.
It was a good time. They did a great job with that place. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. They were gracious enough to let me bring the babies in. I walked in and saw the sign like, no kids after 3 p.m. I was like, oop, I'm that guy.
Sorry.
With a stroller and then my 2.5-year-old boy. So, yeah, it was a good time. It was good to see everybody.
Buddy, this is about the time you start picking up your Aggie baseball, right? Like you start keeping up, and like you're going to the game tonight.
I'm going to the game tonight. Yeah, I got some buddies, actually some colleagues that have become buddies. You know, 2 of them that run our Austin division. One of them that I think you've met, Daniel, that runs Houston division now. We're all kind of coming together. One of them has a buddy that's an Aggie. I don't remember what class he is. I was going to give him a shout out today, but we're going to go watch the game together. While we're here throughout the day, we're just going to kind of talk strategy throughout the year for our business. And so it's exciting. Yeah, anytime we can have a business meeting in Bryan College Station, I'm there.
We should be doing more often, right?
We absolutely should.
So I don't think we've talked on radio about football in a while. So
we haven't.
The transfer portal was really good to Coach Elko. His press conferences, his interviews have been great. Like the discipline across the street from what we're hearing is great. Just first 120 days, what do you think, man?
How can you not be pleased with everything that's transpired? And really, you know, remove all the hype and all the things, the transfer portal, that's amazing. He addressed it in a big way, even closed recruiting out really well with Bussy and all that. But the thing that I love to hear in some of the interviews y'all have had with current players is just the difference in what's going on inside the building.
Yeah.
And Billy touched on it a little bit when I was up there with you guys, but again, only got a few minutes with him, but just the difference in which the ways is the coaches are interacting with the players. There's a different level of accountability, competition being created within, which, you know, one of someone's sayings that I did used to love is competition is the coach's best friend. So the things that he's doing as a leader to really kind of reset the culture and set the tone for the direction of the program going forward is massive. So I'm excited. I was always a huge Elko fan.
One of the things that he is doing that I think is so easy to think about, but we don't think about that I could use in this business and you can use in your businesses, he's having different position groups eat together, right? And develop that like real, because you know how it is. You work in your department, you work with your group, and you work with these other guys, but you don't like know them.
Yeah.
When you start breaking bread with them, it changes the game.
Yeah. If naturally people aren't going to intentionally pursue community, even when they're in a team or a job environment. I mean, very rarely does someone have that kind of natural gifting and a personality thing. And when they do, typically it's just a grace to me from the Lord. But so as a leader, he sees that. The importance of the culture, especially today with the way the rosters are changing. You know, college rosters used to be pretty set for 4 years. You had some graduates, some pro guys, and then freshmen. Well, now it's like new team every year with the transfer portal. And so
every few months it feels like, too.
Every few months, yeah. I mean, now they got all these different windows. I don't even know enough to speak knowledgeably about it. But creating culture within that team right now as you're resetting the structure and the trajectory and the vision for this football program, making these guys get to know each other, to care about each other. Man, so remember the Titans, dude. You know, Denzel Washington, you know, running with the guys in the morning, you know, taking them to the battlefield. Like, man, if we don't get to grow together, if we don't get to know each other for who we are, like, this is going to all be for nothing. You know, they can make us play together, but if we don't really get to know each other, and remember how he did his roommates, you know, did it by color. I mean, it's the same thing in the locker room. You got a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures, so many different things and stories that make each one of those individual players. Getting them together intentionally, forcing them to get to know each other is huge because you start to care.
Yeah, you do
You
care.
know, you and I started doing radio together.
We're now like lifelong friends.
And now you're my boy. I mean, it's the same with Billy from when I was young. I mean, you get to know people, you get to care about them, and that's what happens. And he's doing that. And that's a big deal.
All right, so I know my answer, and you've probably heard me talk about it, but if I were to say position group that has to be, what is the most key position group to you this year?
Offensive line.
Yeah, my boy. Thank you.
I mean, it's a key anytime, but in the SEC, man, where the defenses and the front sevens are just so powerful. I mean, you could play Mississippi State, and if your O-line's not good, you're going to get punked. I mean, you have to have an O-line, and go back to the best season we've had since we've been in the SEC, and look what's standing in front of Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Yep, you have that dynamic quarterback. Yep, you had some dynamic receivers and Mike and Swope, but you remove that O-line, toast. I mean, Johnny wouldn't have been Johnny. He still would have been fun to watch. But
Well, look at 2020 and 2021. 2020, you had the line. You go to the Orange Bowl. 2021, your line has some issues.
That's it.
And you go 8-4.
You will. The heartbeat of your team is your offensive line. Left tackles get paid a lot of money for a good reason, and even so now with guards and Zach Martin and some of these high-profile centers. I mean, it's just you realize with how athletic DNs and linebackers and D tackles are now, you got to have a front five, man. So put them number one, and then right behind that, to me,
Connor.
Well, no, Connor's a G. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about quarterback genuinely at all.
Okay.
With 15 here. I mean, seriously, end of conversation. Full confidence. Probably in that position more than any. Number 2 is linebacker.
Okay.
We got to have linebackers that can play, that can cover receivers out of the backfield. These new dynamic offenses, and we haven't really had a strong linebacking core in a really long time.
Well, last year was pretty strong.
Last year was actually pretty strong.
Edge was really good.
Edge was good, and then Torian is a machine.
Yeah.
So
let's say cornerback. Let's. Because cornerback last year was the Achilles heel of that defense.
Killed us when
they all did.
Reek went out, yeah.
Miami threw all over. Tyler
That's
Van Dyke did not have a great season, but he had a great game against A&M.
No, that's a good point. You're right. I stand corrected.
But linebacker without losing.
I just love when we have dominant linebackers.
Oh, yeah, it's A&M.
We need it, yeah.
Right?
We need it.
And if you lose Edgerrin Cooper to the first, well, you are going to lose him to the first or second round of the NFL draft. You know, Torian was a G, as you said. Who's going to step up?
Yeah, I know. We need dudes to step up. That's what I'm saying. So maybe it is linebacker number 2. And last year they were pretty good.
And cornerback for sure.
Cornerback always, dude.
Yeah.
You can never have good enough guys that can cover. That's the hardest position in football.
Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Glad to stop in. Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, man. When we come back, Ryan Brauninger, Recruiting Country, that and more. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Recruiting Country, presented by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area. You got the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. Online, caprockhealthsystem.com. Ryan Brauninger is with us. We're going to do some baseball this segment. We're obviously doing recruiting, but let's start off at least with one baseball question before we get into recruiting. How much fun was last night? What time did you get back?
Got in it was after midnight. I got to bed after 1 o'clock. Yeah, man, it was really fun. It's going to be in fact, this morning when you emailed me about this segment, I almost told you, just have Jason on, because it's going to be hard for me to turn off baseball brain right now because I'm so in baseball mode. But we can power through some recruiting stuff for sure.
Yeah, but you had fun?
Duh.
Well, I don't know, because you put your analyst hat on.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I am so thankful and grateful that I live in College Station, Texas, and not Austin. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
One baseball question on the chat that came for you earlier in the show.
Can we just wait? Let's segment it off.
You want to do baseball now?
No. Let's do recruiting.
Okay.
And we'll do baseball in the
SB, we'll get to your question later. All right. Hassan Longstreet. Let's. He said his date recently, right?
Yeah, and he's got top schools. And if you're a premium subscriber, you read Jason's report and his long-form article about Hassan yesterday. But this is a kid that we've been tracking. He showed up to junior day in February, and we have been tracking kind of his movements and intent ever since, because the vibe that we had gotten just off talking to sources out west, and the vibe we had gotten off of his recruitment was, kind of maroon and white tinted coming off that visit. And this is a kid that Colin Klein has targeted directly, and we've been able to piece that together. Like, this is Colin Klein's guy in this class. So it's always interesting, and I think I'm going to write a recruiting article about this. When you have a new staff come in, David, and there's not a lot known about Colin Klein as a recruiter. He's still a younger guy, but he was at Kansas State, so we don't know a lot about how he's going to recruit elite players to the Southeastern Conference. And I want to go through and just kind of examine piece by piece these coaches as recruiters, and what do we know? What do we think? How do we think they'll fare? Tony Girardetti, we think he's going to be good, but he's been involved with some big-time recruitments as an analyst, but now he's a position coach.
Yep.
So I do kind of want to unpack all that in a long-form article at some point this spring. I may do it later this month. But this Longstreet is a kid that Colin Klein has directly targeted as his guy that he wants in this 2025 class, and he's one of the best quarterbacks on the West Coast, one of the best overall prospects in the state of California. And what have we seen recently with top California quarterback prospects? Where do they go?
They go to the West Coast, don't they?
No.
Where do they go?
Where's Bryce Young from? California.
Yeah.
Where's C.J. Stroud?
California. They've gone to Alabama. They've gone to Ohio State.
And we're seeing a mass exodus of –
Caleb Williams was California as well?
That's from New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay.
Yeah. What we're seeing is a exodus of California talent across all sports to the big conferences out east. And maybe that was part of – I don't know how it could be part of it. Maybe that was some kind of the thinking when USC and UCLA decided to go to the Big Ten, is like, we need to get into a conference with more eyeballs on it and better visibility. So who knows? But there is obviously, we're seeing it with Aggie baseball. A lot of those kids are California kids. And I just think that the high-end athlete out there, especially a football player, sees the grandiose opportunities in the SEC. And it's like, I need to take advantage of that. And that visibility, that footprint, and getting in those type of environments and those types of programs. And so for Longstreet and A&M, it's becoming more commonplace for those California quarterbacks to leave the state and apply their trade elsewhere. And I think that A&M is in an outstanding spot for him as he goes through these spring visits. And he's got one scheduled to A&M in April. And with him having a decision date already set, like, I'm pretty bullish on A&M's chances right now. Like, I think somebody's going to have to unseat the Aggies to get him and unseat and undo the job Colin Klein has done up to this point. And if you go watch the tape, there is a whole lot to like, especially giving given what Colin Klein has done in the past with dual threat quarterbacks. And, I don't think we're going to see, for instance, Connor Wigman run a bunch because Connor Wigman doesn't have to run. He can certainly win you games with his arm.
Yeah.
But having that dual threat capability in Colin Klein's offense, we've seen him be really productive at Kansas State with those types of players. And for him to go out and scour the country and land on this guy, by him I mean Colin Klein, scour the country and land on Longstreet as his number one target, that should tell you a lot about what the current offensive coordinator thinks of this kid as a prospect.
Who are some of the other schools that are in the mix?
It's like coast to coast, but it's a lot of schools like in the Southeast, and I can't remember his entire visit schedule. Again, I've been so
of course
not in football mode, but I mean, you can pull up his Twitter and find out that visit schedule, and I could probably sit here and do that.
No, we'll have Eric do it. We can have. And you said talent-wise, this guy's a dual threat. Does he remind you of anybody?
Actually, the funny comparison that I've come up with so far has been Cam Ward.
Okay.
And Cam Ward was a kid that whenever he came to camp out of West Columbia, he had hardly any offers. Obviously, he goes to Incarnate Word out of high school and then goes to Washington State and has progressively seen his career and his reputation as a player increase. But that was a kid that came to camp, and a lot of the A&M coaches are going, why hasn't this kid got any offers? And I can even remember Daryl Dickey saying, what's the deal? Like, why doesn't this kid have offers? I think he's really good, and A&M almost went on him. So when you watch Longstreet's tape, there's some Cam Ward to it, like quick release, big arm, good with his feet, good pocket mobility, good pocket presence, shows a real feel for trajectory, getting the ball up and down. He makes throws to every quadrant of the field, and he's doing it in a really good California district and really good against some really good competition out there on the West Coast. So as a player, I think you'd put him right up there with the best in the state of Texas in this cycle without question.
Oh, that's good stuff. Let's.
I got it. You got Oregon. So the other finalists for Longstreet: Oregon, UCLA, Auburn, Louisville, Michigan, Ole Miss, and Miami. And here, I'm getting to the point where with Lane Kiffin's like offense and the way the quarterbacks are producing under him, like for Ole Miss to be near the top for a kid, that says something to me because, like him or not, Lane Kiffin has shown a propensity to be able to pick out a really talented quarterback to run his system and be super productive.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Spring game. Last week you told us not to expect a huge visitor list. Are there reasons for that?
At the spring game, yeah, I think the staff is going to use the practices, like when the kids come visit for practices, and the kids and their inner circle, their families, parents, or trainers, whoever's with them, they get to sit down and watch them coach and how they interact with players. And I think that's one of the bigger unknowns right now with this A&M staff. And so I think the way you combat that is like, hey, you want to see how we interact with our players, what we're coaching, how we're coaching it. Why don't you just come to a practice and we'll let you sit there and watch the entire thing one-on-one. And our attention will not be diverted from you before and after because we've got 100 kids on campus like we would at a spring game. And I think there are going to be players come in for visits, official visits for that spring game weekend, but it won't be as numerous as we've seen in the past. And I think that's going to be by design because and especially with Mike Elko, it being his first spring game here, I'm sure he's going to want to devote a lot of time in the preparation, the operation of that actual game. And if you're going to use that as a recruiting tool and a big recruiting tool, wouldn't you want to have more time to spend with the recruits? And I think if they know that their attention is going to be diverted elsewhere, legitimately diverted elsewhere because they are worried about the progression and the implementation of their schemes and offense and defensive stuff with their current roster, and I think that's vitally important right now. Don't you?
Yeah.
Then maybe we shouldn't have some of our top targets in on that weekend, because we need to be really able to focus on our current team, our current roster.
I like that strategy. I also like the individualized attention at a practice because it's unique, it's different.
Yeah, and I don't think kids anywhere, I think one of the most overrated aspects in a recruiting cycle is which spring game a kid attends, because you can have 50, 60,000 show up to Kyle Field, in April for that spring game, and it ain't going to mimic a fall Saturday.
Right.
It's not. And I don't know. I've gotten to the mindset that I think where a kid goes for a spring game and the influence a spring game can have on a particular recruitment is fading faster than it ever has. And I don't put a lot of stock into the experience that a kid has inside of a stadium at a spring game.
Do they have some DB options this class?
Sure. I mean, they got a ton of them. Jason wrote about those again yesterday. So what we've done as a recruiting team is split up essentially an offensive position and a defensive position, and we write about it each week to try to give the recruiting fans as much of a glimpse of the big board that Jason and I have been able to piece together. Let the fan base know, hey, this is kind of what we think it looks like. Here are the real options. Jason did a great job of also going we've done mostly in-state, but Jason did a great job with the quarterback and defensive back prospects of also looking at a few out-of-state names that we think are legitimate targets. But at DB, first of all, you got it kicked off with an enormous commitment in Dejan Petaway. I think that gets overlooked. I said it when he gave his pledge to A&M that it might get overlooked because of who he is, but he's Damian Sanford's half-brother. A&M has been the odds-on favorite for so long. That should not take away from the type of player and the type of recruiting win that was for Mike Elko.
Yep.
Dejan Petaway is a sensational prospect and will be viewed as one of the top DBs, not only in the state of Texas, but across the country throughout this cycle. But from there are some real options in the state of Texas, and they're not giving up on a guy like Devin Sanchez at all at North Shore. Been committed to Ohio State. I think the staff has shown Devin that he will continue to be a priority because they have shown up at the school. Mike Elko and Ish Arsti have been to North Shore multiple times already. So Devin is clearly aware of that A&M's not going to take – yeah, they're not going away. They're going to continue to pursue him until the ink is dry on the letter of intent. And Ohio State may hold on to him, but I like the fervency that they're attacking that recruitment with. And you look at a guy like Caleb Chester at Fort Bend Marshall, outstanding one-on-one cover skills, and a guy that in a school that A&M has had real success at and is very highly thought of based off how they've operated at Fort Bend Marshall in the past. Cade Phillips at Fort Bend Hightower got ties to the school through his older brother Kenneth. Mike Elko actually recruited his older brother before he had his career unfortunately ended due to a really, really bad knee injury that he sustained his senior year in high school. But Kobe Sellers at Shadow Creek, Dorian Brew at Conroe High. Like, there's a plethora of in-state options for them to go in the defensive backfield. I'm sure I'm even overlooking a couple, but I really like where they're at with some of their top targets in state. And as we've said for a while, this class could be 20 to 25 deep and only have 4 or 5 out-of-state kids. Like they could go really, really Texas heavy in this group.
How hard is it at this point to really figure out scholarship numbers and all that because of all the unknowns, with who could enter the spring transfer window and whatnot?
Yeah, and it goes even further than that because you're going to go into the fall going, okay, I have this many available. After that spring transfer window, we get guys out, we get guys in, whatever it may be, your roster finally settles for the fall. And then you play the fall, and you're getting ready to sign a recruiting class in December, and after your final game, you have 5 guys that you didn't think were leaving are going to go into the portal. Right. So you have 5 more. What we don't know is what will Elko and this coaching and recruiting staff hold for the portal. So it's beginning to get a lot tougher to nail down class size, and it's getting a lot less important to nail down class size because of the options that we've seen go into the portal. And if they're not going to stop the current operation of the transfer portal and how it goes, then you can hold 5 spots, you could hold 10 spots, you could hold 15 spots. Like, it doesn't – it's all depends. It's going to be a year-by-year thing, and it's putting a number on the size of a recruiting class used to be a big deal. Okay, A&M's got 20 – we know they're going to have 23 open scholarships, so they're going to go out and try to sign 23 high school players. It ain't like that anymore. It's not even close to being like that anymore. It's just another element of the recruiting game that has changed so drastically over the last 5 years. So what do I think? I would say I'm comfortable saying right now it'll be 17 to 20 high school guys, but they could really love 25 in-state, out-of-state high school prospects. So we're going to take 25.
Right.
Or they could say, well, do we really need to roll the dice on a kid that we don't know if he's going to be able to play here? We don't know if he's going to hold to our standard that Mike Elko is trying to implement in the culture he's trying to implement. Do we need to take that risk even though he's a good player, or can we just hold that spot and go find somebody that's a little bit more proven out of the portal?
All right, let's hit a break. We're going to come back. I know there's a question for Bronny recruiting-wise, but we're going to get to some baseball as well. Caller number 1, we're going to give you a free car wash right now from Aggie Land Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. They're Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller right now a free car wash from Aggie Land Express in South College Station, 979-693-1150. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Bruce in Belton says, hey, Nuño, my son Paul and I are going to be in Magnolia Saturday. Looking forward to meeting with you and Luch at the Angry Elephant. I remember meeting Paul at the Angry Elephant in College Station, and if I remember correctly, he's into MMA, so looking forward to that. We also got a text from JW. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center there. We'll allow Eric Casares to read that one.
Yeah, so JW said, ask Bronny why he always says plethora so often.
Yeah, I'm not really all that bright, and I have a very limited vocabulary. But one of my self-criticisms, and I like doing performance analysis of myself and being hypercritical of myself, is that I do overuse words and turns of phrase, and to the point I get repetitive, I feel like, in my writing and also in the way that I deliver information on the radio. So thank you for holding me accountable. I do say plethora too much. I should use words like sundry, abundance, variety. There are other words that I can use, but again, my brain, I'm very limited in brain function. So you cut me some slack. I'm from Southeast Texas.
He's kidding. JW's got a smiley face on that one.
Oh, okay.
Hey, here's a question that came in, and look, we're very high on Schloss for obvious reason. This is one from SB. Nuño, can you ask Bronny to list the top college baseball coaches? Is Schloss in the top 5, top 10? The team looks really, really good.
I mean, top 10 without question. It's hard to put him in the top 5 because he doesn't have a national championship, and there's probably 5 guys that are currently, Mike Bianco, Jay Johnson, Tim Corbin. Who am I missing here? Active college baseball, Kevin O'Sullivan at Florida. But he's right there. I mean, if that's your criteria, okay, you have to be a national championship winning head coach. Those guys go first. And then the next group of guys with Dave Van Horn and Schloss would be in that group, and maybe Tony Vitello. And so he's amongst the elite in the country, no question.
Yep. So Jackson Appel, what a cool moment for him. And just, Bronny, I don't know if this is the big takeaway from yesterday, but I've enjoyed this season seeing the guys that they went and out and got from the transfer portal delivering in a big, big way.
Yeah, we had a pretty good idea of what Braden Montgomery was going to be, but whenever you go get guys out of the Ivy Leagues or these lower levels, whether it's Ivy League or Conference USA or Sun Belt or the Southland, you do go, okay, like can they play here? And with the amount of technology and the scouting that is available to these coaches right now, every Power 5 head coach in the country could have done the homework to go out and try to get Hayden Schott and Jackson Appel and Zane Badmiev, and any of those guys that came from those lower level schools that transferred in. But what we've seen so far, specifically with hitters in Jim Schlossnagle's tenure in College Station, is, and this is a huge credit to Michael Early, is that Dylan Rock had good numbers at UTSA. When he came here, they got better.
Yep.
Jack Moss had good numbers at Arizona State. When he came here, they got better. Hunter Haas, same thing. So he's taking these guys. Cole Kaler, same thing. He's taking these guys. Troy Clonch, same thing. I could just keep going on and on. They're all getting better. Their numbers are improving offensively when they take a step up in the level of competition. And all those guys that I just mentioned did that, whether they were at Arizona State or they were at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good. The Pac-12 is a good baseball league, but it's not the SEC. So they're taking a step up, and their numbers are getting better. That's a huge feather in the hat of Michael Early. So when they go get a Jackson Appel from Penn or a Hayden Schott from Columbia or even an Ali Camarillo from Cal State Northridge, they've earned the benefit of the doubt when they go take those guys out of the portal. Like, why are they going to get the shortstop at Cal State Northridge? Doesn't the shortstop at Florida State want to come? But it's not. It's like baseball talent is dispersed more so now than it ever has been. The talent pool, the elite talent pool, is far too great to be encompassed by the 11.7 scholarships that only like everybody has. So the group of players that are elite in terms of their overall talent is greater than that number of limited scholarships. So where do they go? They've got to go to other places. And you also just never know how guys are going to mature and grow over the course of their careers. Jackson Appel told me, he's like, COVID changed my career. Because I gained 30 pounds over COVID and I became a real player. And that's whenever he transitioned from he was not even recruited out of high school. Like Penn was his only shot to play college baseball. He goes up there, COVID hits, and he adds weight and he adds strength, and all of a sudden he's still got the same skill he had, but now he's got it with some real playable strength and the requisite strength that playing elite college baseball requires. So, again, it's a fantastic job of scouting by Nolan Cain and Jim Schlossnagle. It's a fantastic job of development by Michael Early with these guys. And then for Jackson to have that night, I told him after the game, you'll remember that the rest of your life. And he comes from, both of his parents are Aggies, so how cool of a moment must that have been? And he had 2 hits, one against, so he's from Houston Memorial. His first base hit was against a guy from Bel Air Episcopal, and his second hit was against a guy from Lutheran South Academy. So 2 Houston area guys that he probably grew up knowing and playing against in the summer. It was just, kind of what a neat kind of full circle night for him and his family.
How would you evaluate Chris Cortez's appearance?
Spotty. It was completely inverted than anything we've ever seen from Chris, because typically he has real trouble landing a breaking ball for a strike and has some fastball command. Last night he had 0 fastball command and was throwing sliders in any and every count and pitched his way in and out of jams based off his slider usage. So if you want to look at that and say, well, through 2 years, he's really struggled landing the secondary pitch. And last night, in the biggest atmosphere he's pitched in terms of hostility, he lands the secondary pitch with consistency and gets a bunch of swings and misses out of it. Then you're going, that's a huge step forward. But again, the walks creep back in because there's that slider command didn't pair with any fastball command. And I thought he did a good job, like I said, keeping A&M in the game, but I thought it was the right time to take the ball from him when he walked that leadoff hitter of the 4th inning, and you handed it to Evan Aschenbeck. But, Chris, you keep running him out there on Tuesdays, and he's giving you a chance to win. So how would I qualify it? I'd say it's pretty similar to his start against Lamar. Not bad, not great, could be better, could be worse.
But he did exactly what Schloss wanted. Hand the ball off. And
I think if you wanted to be really picky about it, like you say, he walked too many people.
Yeah.
Right? But he did hand the ball to Evan Aschenbeck with a lead, and a fresh Evan Aschenbeck who brought you through the middle part of the game when it was still very much in question. And, I mean, Aschenbeck has been, since he's been here, has been sensational.
Yeah.
Just simply remarkable. And he doesn't just wow you with stuff, but he's gritty and he's a competitor and he throws everything for a strike and he's unafraid and he's a really good defender on the mound. He has been, without question, like the life force of this pitching staff over 2 years.
How about Josh Stewart? That at bat was, that hitter he went against, that was
Jalen Flores is their best pro prospect as a position player.
Quick work.
And that Josh Stewart's development is a direct testament to the job Max Weiner has done, because he's completely retooled him as a pitcher. He's standing almost off the mound to the third base side to start. And he's gone real sweeper slider heavy, which that pitch has been added to his arsenal and reshaped by Max Weiner and became the weapon for him. He's going to essentially stand on the mound behind a right-handed hitter and throw sweeper, sweeper, sweeper. And now the scouting report gets out and he gets ahead with 2 sweepers last night. And so Jalen Flores is going, all right, here comes another one, because this is what he does. It's like 70% sweepers, and he blows a 93-mile-an-hour fastball right by one of the best hitters in the Texas lineup. So, I love what Josh Stewart brings from a right-handed perspective. I think we're going to see a lot more of him. And then he gives the ball to Cedillo, who is just – Shane Cedillo's on some other type of level right now. Last 9 outs, all by punch-outs, and he is blowing the doors off people.
It's interesting because I'm watching him last night, and the first few pitches, I'm like, he seems a bit off, and then he wasn't.
It just dialed it back in. I think the zone was a little tight last night, which that's fine. Like every umpire is going to be a little bit different. But, again, it's kind of the same mentality of Aschenbeck, just fearless, competitive strike thrower, but with a super live arm. It's the radar gun's reading 92 to 96, but he's getting swings and miss on fastballs. It looks like it's coming out at 103 to the hitters. And he threw some just Bugs Bunny Frisbee sliders in there last night as well. And if that is his role in this team, that 30 to 50 pitch count, and let him come in big spots late in games, he might be the most trusted. And we didn't see this going into the year, but he might end up being their most trusted and reliable arm on the back end to just come in and nail down wins.
Who do you think we see tonight?
I posted on the boards. I think we could see wholesale changes tonight. And let me preface this by saying I don't know anything. I don't have any sources on this. This is pure speculation. Jim Schlossnagle has won 903 or 4 more games as a college baseball coach than I have. And he is going to have the best feel for what his team needs and how he should write his lineup tonight, playing the 5th game in 6 days. My speculation is that we are going to see all the young kids play and all those guys that have been playing get a much-deserved night off. Gavin Grahovic's banged up. Jace. I mean, have you noticed how hard Jace Lavalette is playing?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he hasn't homered in over a week, so I think people are like.
But a couple times he's gotten the first just with pure speed.
Right, and like diving plays in the outfield. He wears 94 off the left elbow. It balloons up like a softball right after it happens, and he doesn't come out of the game.
Yeah.
Like, there's something, again, it's just another really encouraging data point that your best players are also playing exceptionally hard. I think that kind of trickles down to everybody else. But tonight, I mean, I could see a Blake Bender up at first, Justin Vazos at second base, Caden Kent at short, Jack Bell at third, Max Coffer catching, Jet Johnston, Travis Chestnut, Caden Sorrell in the outfield, Ryan Targach DHs. Start Isaac Morton on the mound, and then roll all those talented freshmen on the mound in relief roles. Maybe Braden Montgomery pitches tonight. But those guys, if they want it, they've earned a night off. The one guy that I could see them, the regular starter that I could see them going out and playing tonight is Ali Camarillo, just to try to get him some more at-bats and get him back on the baseball.
Yeah, he's been in a little bit of a slump.
Yeah.
I'm going to end with this. 979 sends this text. If you want a good laugh, go read the first paragraph of Schloss's Wikipedia page. So I went and looked it up. And it says Jim Schlossnagle is the American baseball coach and former pitcher who's the current head coach at Texas A&M and father of the Texas Longhorns.
People like to have some fun with those wiki pages. But I'll get out of here by saying this. I know there's basketball tonight, an important basketball game. Even if there are backups playing against Texas Southern in a midweek, this team deserves for A, your support, but B, they're fun to watch. And if you've got kids that are able to be engaged with the baseball game, maybe 10 and up, and you want to bring them out and do something in midweek, it's a great environment. They're fun to watch. Obviously, the games, the atmospheres at Olson are entertaining. I cannot advocate for just the experience of watching this team and how they play and how expressive they are. Like, Hayden Schott is one of the most electric personalities we've ever seen, like, regardless of sport.
Yeah.
And, like, his tweets, his post-game interviews, his NIL interviews, it's almost like whether the guy's playing or not, I want to hear what he thinks and what he has to say. And it's just been, who knows what the season's going to entail. But this has been a really fun first 12 games.
Ronnie, thank you, sir.
Yep.
When we come back, Kendall Rogers, more baseball here on TexAgs Radio. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to keep the good baseball time vibes going here. Let's go to the hotline. We are joined by Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball, to talk about all things happening in baseball, but of course, a bulk of it on what happened last night. Kendall, good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. So, I don't know where you were last night, if you were in Austin, if you had 12 TVs on, but tell me about what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, I watched on television. I think the biggest thing for me is kind of twofold here. I think number one, I think A&M just a really good team. I mean, you look at those guys, top to bottom offensively. I thought they worked some fantastic at bats. Even Jack Bell went in there, had a couple of really nice at bats. Braden Montgomery kind of getting that game started the way he did. That's just kind of what we've seen from that team all year long. But once again, I think the biggest thing for me is just the improvements his pitching staff has made under Max. I mean, I think if you look at, Chris Cortez obviously wasn't great last night. I mean, he had command issues, but the fact that he was able to kind of wiggle out of serious trouble was just simply something he never did last year. And so even though the command wasn't amazing, he limited damage, and that's a win for him. It's one thing to not have immaculate command, but to not give up a 4 or 5 spot, which he did plenty of times last year, I thought was a win for Chris. I think you look at the job that, Aschenbeck and, Sadeo did out of the bullpen. Sadeo was really interesting to me because, he tops out at, 93, 94 this fastball. But I'll tell you what, I really like that home plate view that the LHN had of the pitchers, because I thought the fastball, even though it was 93, 94, I thought that thing really exploded on hitters. Like, it looked, to me, from a camera point of view, like it was more like 97, 98. So I love his mentality. I love his approach. I'll be honest with you. I love everything about this A&M team right now. Nothing seems to faze them. They have the defensive miscue. They bounce back, get out of the inning without trouble. I mean, they just look very, very locked in. And when a team is that locked in, they're pretty scary.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Radio. Let's talk about Braden Montgomery in particular, the start that he's had, the home run streak, just everything he has been, man. Like, I couldn't ask for a better start from this young man, and we knew he was great, right? We knew this is a major leaguer right here. And just talk about his start.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think the biggest thing with Braden is how he's dealt with expectations. I think any time when there's a transfer involved, and clearly, I mean, let's not beat around the bush, when there's NIL involved, people naturally will go, well, I expect this guy to hit 350 with 20 home runs. That's what we're expecting to get out of this guy. So, I mean, there's naturally some pressure on a guy like that. But, man, I just feel like his heartbeat is very steady. He hits a home run, and, yeah, he's pumped up. But, they pan to him in the dugout 2 minutes later, and he's locked in on the next hitter. He's not over there, doing cartwheels and going down the luggage cart in the dugout, which I don't mind that. I'm just saying, like, that's just kind of his mentality. He is just a professional baseball player in a college baseball uniform. And I think whether it's his offensive approach, which, by the way, has gotten better. Last year Stanford, there's a lot more swing and miss in Braden. Not as much this year. There's premium power. I like his pitch selection. And the other thing that, we haven't even really talked about, because his offense has been so good, is just what a weapon he is in the outfield. I mean, last night Texas had a ball, but I think, and some guys might have been able to stretch that to a double on the throw. But, I mean, with Montgomery, like, you didn't even try it. So he adds another element to your defense in the sense that nobody's going to try to take second base if that ball is being hit to right field.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. If there's an area that you have maybe some concerns about A&M, where would that be?
I don't know. I mean, I know it's weird to say that I don't really have concerns this early. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, I guess moving forward, is as we get into SEC play, there's no question that Ryan Prager in the rotation has been very good in non-conference. But what I'm curious to see is a guy like Prager, coming back from injury. He's been excellent so far this year. But, when you're going to Florida and you're playing Vandy or you're playing LSU, like, how does Prager do as a Friday night guy against that quality of competition? Really, that is my only question mark is frankly guys like Prager once they get in the SEC. Other than that, again, I think this team's fine defensively. I love the offensive lineup, even at the towards the bottom of the lineup. There's guys just having really good at bats. I thought Hayden shot at some really nice at bats last night for A&M. Bullpen wise, I mean, I think Max done wonders with that group. I feel very good about the bullpen. So yeah, I guess that'd be the only thing for me is just how the rotation does in the SEC. And if that's where I am at this time of year, when it comes to this team compared to last year, you're in a pretty good spot.
Is David Pierce's seat really hot, or is it just conversation because of the way this last week has gone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's hot yet. I will say this: I am a Pierce fan. Like I've known Coach Pierce for 20 years. I think he's number one, a great guy. Number two, I think he's a really good mind. With that said, I mean, I think anybody with a pulse that looks at some of the arms they're trotting out there out of the bullpen would kind of take a step back and go, wait, like what are we recruiting here? Because, I mean, you're talking about Texas did not have a single reliever last night that came out of the bullpen throwing harder than 88. And again, I'm not, some people go, well, Evan Ashenbeck throws 87, 88, but Evan also is a really, really good reliever. So they did not have a guy throwing over 88 out of the bullpen last night. They don't have guys with great secondary stuff. So I think if you're Chris Del Conte and you look ahead to the SEC next year and you look at the roster turnover they're going to have, they're going to lose LeBaron Johnson, who's been fantastic, by the way, on Friday nights. They're going to lose LeBaron. They're going to lose their Saturday guy. They're going to lose Tanner Witt. They're going to lose the position players. If you look at your personnel going into the SEC next year, unless they just clean up in the portal, which they haven't done in the last 2 years, I mean, I don't see how that current roster finishes better than 10th in the SEC next year.
What did you make?
That's a cause for concern if I'm Texas.
What did you think of the first off? Explain the situation. What did you make of the Tony Vitello and the Tennessee fan situation from yesterday? That video was great.
Yeah, it's really funny. I actually answered a chat question a couple of days ago and said, hey, Tony's actually really calmed down over the last year and a half. I kind of like this version of Tony a lot. And, then he has that video. But I actually kind of like it. This day and age in society, I feel like whether coaches and Jim, I feel like Jim is one of those people, too, that kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, kind of like he went after the fans for leaving the seats behind home plate empty. Like, I love that kind of stuff because this day and age society, there are so few people, especially in those positions, that actually speak their mind. And I think when you look at Tony and you got a guy at a midweek game just chirping nonstop at your players and at you, I'm guessing he wasn't saying very nice things. I kind of like him calling him out. Like we don't get that enough these days. There's not enough accountability.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, Tennessee doing what they've been doing the last couple of years, taking care of business last night against Kansas State. Yeah,
I mean they hit like 7 or 8 homers. Like what in the world are you complaining about? That's a really good team, by the way. I mean Tennessee and A&M have both been phenomenal. And Kansas State, Kansas State started their Friday night guy in that game against Tennessee, hoping to kind of get a big RPI win. And I want to say he gave up like 7 runs in 3 innings. So, yeah, that backfired.
Talking to Kendall Rogers, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Arkansas, the number 2 team in the country. What stands out about the way they're going at it this year?
Well, they're elite on the mound. I do have question marks, though. I think if you look at their offensive production over the last couple of weeks, it has not been great. So I think as good as their pitching is, they probably have the best Friday night starter in college baseball, Hagen Smith, right now. I think he's got 29 strikeouts the last 2 starts. That'll play. But, the biggest thing for Arkansas as we look ahead in the conference play in a couple of weeks is just their ability to hit. They're going to have to hit better to beat the A&M, the LSUs, and teams like that.
Kendall, what about LSU? I mean, obviously we know their reputation, their last season. How about their start?
I really liked them over the weekend. And I was very curious to see them in Houston at Minute Maid because I thought the first 2 weekends, there were some signs of like either they're bored or maybe they're just not as good as I thought. And they're as good as I thought they were going to be. I think if you look at their pitching staff, Gage Jump, the UCLA transfer, looked outstanding. In his start over the weekend in Houston, he was up to 97 with a really good slider. Thatcher Hurd threw well on Sundays, and then Luke Coleman on Fridays Like, I love watching Luke Holman pitch. He's kind of a throwback. He's going to top out at 92, 93, but, man, he can throw 4 pitches all over each quadrant of the strike zone. So they have a really good rotation. They've got a solid bullpen. You know, their lineup for me doesn't quite have the star power and pizzazz of A&M, but it's a really solid lineup top to bottom. And like A&M, they work a lot of counts. I mean, I actually think A&M and LSU are extremely similar ball clubs right now.
And it looks like the Mississippi schools back on track. Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean, just when you think the SEC is going to get a little easier because State and Ole Miss are down, they're starting to figure it out a little bit. I mean, Ole Miss was hitting 180 a couple weeks ago. They're now hitting around 270 as a team. That tells you how red hot they are. It was only a matter of time. But, you know, Mississippi State gets a big midweek win against Southern Miss. You know, again, they haven't played a great schedule on the weekend. So we'll kind of see what they do in conference play. But again, I'm seeing signs of them improving. You know, they've blown a couple of games late. The next day they bounced back with dominant wins. That did not happen last year. They've also improved greatly on the mound, which is kind of their bugaboo last year. I mean, you think back to the A&M series. If their pitching is in garbage against A&M last year, they probably not only win that series, they're probably knocking A&M out of a regional. So they've shored that up a little bit here in the early going.
All right, Kendall. So with SEC play just ahead, what do you think? Like, well, the SEC is so loaded every year, but I just feel like, especially the top 10 this year. What do you think, man?
What I'm thinking is at the top of that league is going to be outrageously good. I think if you finish in the top 4 or 5 in that conference, you could be a national champion. And right now, when I look at a team like A&M, that is a national championship caliber club. They play pretty good defense. They seem to be locked in with a really good kind of mental approach. The pitching staff's getting the job done. The offensive lineup has weapons all over the place. So I guess on one hand, A&M looks like a national championship caliber club. On the other, the SEC can humble you real quick, and I think Jim is going to stress that as they get ready for that Florida series. So there's not a team out there that can humble you quicker than a team like Florida, who, by the way, hasn't been great early on, but they've got talent, and they'll be at home in a couple of weeks in Gainesville.
Kendall, appreciate you, sir. Thanks so much, man.
You got it, David. Be good, buddy.
Later, bud. Kendall Rogers there.
Kendall
on the hotline from D1 Baseball. When we come back, Ethan Jones sent me some stats about the baseball team. We'll break those down. We'll get to some final text messages and more. It's TexAgs Radio. All right, it's time to end the day with Double Dave's caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls and a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. All right, let's end the show with a couple stats here. So Ethan Jones, who does stats for us, gave me a list. After A&M has raised the level of competition the last couple games, Pac-12 teams over the weekend, and obviously they took on Texas last night. Here's some stats. While the pitching numbers were slightly down from the first 8 games, the numbers were still incredible and would rank remarkably high in the nation if performed all season. This is especially impressive when you consider that most of the top 10 teams have faced predominantly weaker opponents to the system. So you got ERA. Third, all right, if ranked for all season long, 2.25. Strikeouts per 9 inning, 10.75. That would be 43rd. Walks per 9, 3.25, 27th. KO to walk ratio, 3.31, 17th in the country. And hits allowed, 6.5. That would be 12th in the country. Over the weekend, Ryan Brauninger allowed 0 earned runs in 5 innings pitched with 8 strikeouts and only 2 walks. He is now one of only 12 pitchers with a 0 ERA that have enough innings pitched per game to qualify for that ranking. So a couple of notes for you guys to take home. Also, Friday night's victory 4-0 over Arizona State, A&M's 4th shutout of the season, which is tied for the most in the nation. Little batting notes for you. The bats from the Power 5 opponents were quite as explosive. From the first 8 games, were quite impressive in certain areas. A&M averaged 8.25 walks per 4-game stretch, which would be second in the nation if performed all season. They hit 6 home runs over a 4-game stretch, more home runs than 58 D1 teams, and have outscored their opponents by an average of 6.5 runs. Sounds pretty good to me. All right, here's the deal. We got baseball tonight. Go baseball. We've got basketball tonight. Really go basketball. We need this one. We got softball tonight. Go softball. We've got Aggie hoops, women's hoops, I should say, tomorrow. Nick, am I right? We're off the air tomorrow at 10:45?
Yeah, we'll be off around 10:44. Pregame for women's basketball starts at 10:45 right here on the Zone.
They're also taking on Mississippi State there in the SEC tournament. They need this one, so to set up a showdown with South Carolina. So, yeah, tomorrow's show, a little bit condensed. We'll fit it all in, though. We'll get the fan show guys in a little bit earlier. We'll figure out the rest of it. It should be a good one here on the program. My thanks to all of our great guests here on the program. Kendall Rogers and Bronny here in the last hour. We had John Harris, Trisha Ford. Oh, and Brady and Leone stopped by unexpectedly. Always love when Leone's here. And Tom Schuberth there in the 8 o'clock hour. He joined us on the Go Hour with OB. That is going to do it here for your favorite show that we call TexAgs Radio. That's going to do it. We'll see you mañana.